Hold it.
Okay. This meeting of the Design Review Board is called to order by Lori Gannell at 4:03 p.m. on April 10, 2024, and it is a meeting with SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office, and we'd like to welcome Ariana Urban and Eric Vondi. Thank you so much for coming to share your knowledge with us. We appreciate it.
Chair Gannell and members of the board, I'll remember my decorum. Thank you so much for having us. This is my favorite thing to do. I can't speak for Eric, my boss. My favorite thing to do is come to design reviews and historic preservation commissions all over the state of Arizona and just talk about stuff and answer questions. And today we've got kind of a lot of stuff to go over, but I'll make it a little more informal than I think I had anticipated. You never know. I presented to the Dewey Humboldt City Council a couple weeks ago, and it was like ties, suits, buttons everywhere. Everything was so like tight and formalized. So I never really know, but thank you guys for having us. Thank you for welcoming us. My name's Ariana. I have been at SHPO for about 2.5 years. Prior to that, I was the Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Mesa. So I've got the municipal experience. I know what you guys do. I know how complicated and difficult and stressful all the excuse me, all the city processes are. I have so much empathy and sympathy for what it takes to do planning and zoning and design review. So I like to do my trainings through that lens, I guess. And yeah, we'll just talk about stuff. And I think, you know, I got a lot of slides, but we'll go through them and just feel free to ask me a question anytime you might have one. And yeah, I don't know. It's can I get to meet you guys so I
Absolutely,
yeah?
absolutely. So I'm Lori Gannell, and I'm the chair of the Design Review Board. And then I'll go over here to Javier.
Javier Rodriguez, building inspector.
Oh, wonderful.
Frank Davis, city liaison to DRB.
I'm Bob DeCruff, a relatively new member of the board,
Okay.
so I have a lot to learn.
Wonderful.
I'm Ben Lepley. I'm a DRB board member. I've been on the board, I think, 6 years, and I'm also an architect who does preservation and adaptive reuse.
Fantastic. So a lot of this would be
Yeah.
review. Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Emmanuel Stewart. I'm a city planner of the city of Bisbee.
Wonderful. So
And I would have worn my more formal Bisbee sweatshirt, but instead of my New York sweatshirt.
I know,
just didn't
gosh.
think of it, yeah.
I didn't forget where we were. I don't think
Introduce myself to.
oh yeah, I guess
Yeah.
Eric can introduce himself.
I'm Eric Vondi. I've been at SHPO for a little over 19 years now. However, my association with Bisbee goes back to the early 70s. My grandmother grew up here and then when she retired, she moved to McNeil, which is about an hour away. And I remember coming here and looking at the open pit mine when it was still operating. In fact, the house that she had is now where the mine is, so as luck would have it. So yeah. So yeah, I've been coming here since the 70s.
Excellent.
And-
Well, welcome back.
What was it, 2006, 2007, SHPO did the Bisbee charrette down here, which I was a
Right.
part of for that, yeah. And so, yeah.
Great, thank you. Welcome
Awesome.
to you.
Very nice to
Really
meet
happy
you.
you're here.
Thank you. I mean, I will in turn thank you guys. I always try to pander to my boards a little bit because it is a really thankless job to do something like this. And, you know, you can take a lot of abuse and you don't get a lot of credit for all your hard work, which is, you know, in the board member's case, uncompensated. And you're just doing this because you love the place that you live. And those are my kind of people. So I appreciate you guys. A lot, you know, some of this may be very old information that you know very well, and if that is the case for everyone, just please stop me and be like, we don't need to talk about this, I already know it. But I hope there's some new things to talk about, and yeah, let's just see what I have here. So we go to the next slide. Bisbee is what we call a certified local government. I hope, maybe, are you guys familiar with the term certified local government?
Sure, but go ahead and tell us about it more.
Okay.
because Just for anybody here who may not.
Very good, yeah, no, sometimes I go to a CLG and they're like, what's a CLG? So, CLG, Certified Local Government, is what we call our municipalities, both cities, towns, and counties that go through a process of certification with SHPO. And it really is like a community, I call it a community commitment to historic preservation. And commitment is real, it involves codifying your historic preservation program, writing it up, putting it into your ordinance. You know, it takes the buy-in from the community, property owners, but also city administrators and mayor and council ultimately. So, Bisbee has been a CLG since 1989, which is honestly one of the early ones. Our program started in 1985. And like I said, there's a couple of requirements to be a CLG. You need that historic preservation ordinance, which you guys definitely have. Some sort of review body commission, which we are here today. A survey, and just being able to know what kind of historic properties you have and what type of shape they're in, hopefully. You know, this process for designating properties and then reviewing potential changes to them, which we're going to talk about, and then some sort of public participation. So Bisbee's been a pretty steadfast CLG this whole time. So A+.
Yeah, so far as I've ever heard it, I mean, I used to think of it as one of the best functioning CLGs out there. When we would come and visit, because for whatever reason, you guys had a natural way of doing things that we thought was right. So I've always been like, even when you've contacted us and said we need help, I'm like, you should see everybody else.
Seriously. I'm here for boring stuff, and Eric is here for the color commentary.
Yeah.
So,
We appreciate it, because we don't know that.
yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that's the thing, yeah.
And I'm lucky, he had my job for many years before I did, so anytime I don't know something, I'm like, ask Eric. Okay, so the next slide is just a little matrix of all the CLGs. And we have 30 right now, and about probably 7, 8, 9, 10 more in the works, which is pretty crazy. But there's Bisbee with her little star, and you can just see, I love showing this slide because it shows the diversity of CLGs. There are, you know, like all the way from Holbrook to Nogales, you know, east and west, big and small, like fancy and not fancy. There's all kinds of cities and towns in Arizona have kind of recognized the importance of their historic resources. So,
And they're in chronological order, right?
they
When
are.
yeah.
Yes, Florence was the very first one in 1985, and all the way down to Cottonwood in 2014.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
I want to
pushing,
Oh
go to all of them now.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, I see it.
there's pushing 10 of them that are trying to become CLGs right now across the state.
Yeah,
so-
there's no more room on this slide. So.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're gonna have to wait a little while.
Yeah.
So there's a few more to even have 2 slides.
Exactly. All right, so my first thing when Emmanuel called me was to talk to him for a while, which was very helpful, and so it's really great that you guys have a planner that knows what he's talking about. Definitely not every place even has a planner, seriously. So this is cool, and one of the first things I did was I went and read your ordinance, and honestly, I perused the entire zoning code, as one does, but if you want to go to the next slide, again, I'll just pander to you a little bit, but your historic preservation ordinance is amazing. And I'm not exactly sure how old it is. I can maybe talk to the clerk's office or something to see when it was last updated, but it is comprehensive, it is tight, and what my biggest takeaway was that it is very unique to Bisbee, and that is not something we see all the time. A lot of times these ordinances are cut and pasted from example ones, or you know, everyone borrows from Casa Grande because they have a great one, you know, but Bisbee's literally talks about, and we'll talk about this later, but addresses the fact that, like, yeah, we can set a maximum building height, but if it's not right, then the DRB can pick something different. And it's like, you don't see that in any other historic preservation ordinances, but it's important in somewhere like Bisbee. And so the fact that you guys have this ordinance with some elasticity in it, just as, you know, the city itself is just so wildly varied and no two lots are the same. So, you know, the ordinance can't be applied to any two properties in the exact same way. So, but at the same time, it still has very like quantifiable measures and guidelines and things that are important for a historic preservation ordinance. So,
I might say that some of the challenges that we have and the reason that you're even here
yeah,
comes out of that.
Okay.
You know, because people might say, well, you said it was okay for this property,
Mhm.
you know, but you didn't say it was okay
Yes.
for this property, you're not being consistent. And we
Mm.
strive to be consistent, but
Of
it isn't
course.
always appropriate.
that is so hard in
Yeah.
somewhere like Bisbee. I would say pushing impossible. And I'm not here to say that your job is impossible, but in somewhere like Bisbee, especially with the law says that you guys get to pick what the building height is. It's hard to property owners, like, it's just, I mean, you know, you guys are appointed to make the best decisions for the built environment in Bisbee, and no property owner likes to hear, you know, sorry to you property owner, but this is what we're deciding for you. It is really hard. I wish I had a perfect answer to that conundrum. I don't, but I can help, and I'm always happy to help. But I had something else to say. I don't know what it was. Anyway, we'll figure it out. We will try to help. We will try to figure it out. We can always. I took a look at the matrices that you guys have been working on, and you know, I also want to get an idea from you guys maybe a little bit later on about how much new construction is happening in the historic district and what it's looking like and kind of how much strife around it has existed. So definitely. Let's see, the other thing that is not usually included in a historic preservation ordinance is literally the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties, which is like, you know, the federal Bible, the federal guidelines that all CLGs need to be able to reference and follow in their ordinances and as they sort of execute their programs. But they're referenced, right? In many ordinances they say it has to follow this, but in yours it actually spells them out, which is good for you guys, and you know, adds a layer of that kind of more predictability is not the right word, but informs the property owners if they bother to read the ordinance a little bit more about what they're getting themselves into. So I'll talk about the standards. I don't know how much you guys know or need to know or want to know about them. So I maybe will go through them a little bit quickly,
Yeah,
and
I think
then
that's appropriate. Yeah.
please, you know, stop me if you have any questions or want to know, like how maybe would that work in Bisbee. So if we go to the next slide. Ultimately, standards, whatever, Bisbee design guidelines, whatever. What we are looking for when we are reviewing a potential change to a historic property is what we call integrity, and that's sort of a term of art in the historic preservation world, and it has these 7 aspects. Some of them are harder than others, right? We have design, materials, workmanship. Those are things we can actually touch on the building, and then location. And then some of them are a little bit softer, like how does it feel, or what's its association? And in order for a building to have integrity, it doesn't need to have all of these. That almost never exists, but it needs to have enough of them, and there really is no like hard number.
And I'd say one of the most difficult things on this is this can be very subjective, and there's not really a workaround for it. So I fear the day that like Sarbanes-Oxley and stuff like that it gets into the preservation world and starts trying to get you to quantify how to do this, because it just doesn't work. So it was a thing that hit after one of the, I think, WorldCom's accounting scandals, and they tried to make you qualify or codify everything
Okay.
in the accounting world, and it was spreading beyond that. But
Are we all supposed to just know what that is?
well, it used to be everybody knew what it was.
All right, I don't know.
It's been a while. But here, the former State Historic Preservation Officer, Jim Garrison, who helped write the original guidelines for Bisbee, or at least his name's all over them. He may have just reviewed them, but he tried to create a matrix where
Oh yeah,
the
integrity.
integrity matrix and that, but it really didn't work, and even he said it wasn't possible to really do that. So this is one place where I think there's too much wiggle room, but I don't know how to fix that.
Yeah.
So far as I've come across, no one does.
Yeah, and I'll talk about this a little more later, but it's not just in Bisbee that historic preservation has this undercurrent of and sort of subjectivity that you really, at the very end of the day, can't get around, and I'll bring that a little bit later. So we can just go through these quickly. The first aspect is location. It's obviously pretty simple. Oh, thank you. Has the property been moved, and how much does it matter? Sometimes we can relocate properties, and if we are able to keep them within their original historic context or relocate them to an appropriate historic context, maybe we need to move it down the block in another historic district, or we can get pretty creative with this as well. But usually relocating a property makes it lose enough integrity that it's not eligible for the National Registration Board, but sometimes it's okay. Okay, so design is the next one, and this is the big one, right? We're really just looking at how different the property is now, or the potential changes would be from how it was when it was originally constructed. And it can be kind of black and white in that, or it can have a lot of gray area. And so if it has been altered, how much does that alteration negate the ability of the property to really communicate the fact that it's still historic? Okay, so setting is an interesting one. This is an example from Tucson where the Benedictine Monastery, obviously like a total landmark. Do you know this project, Ben? Yeah. So the Benedictine Monastery, absolute landmark, architectural gem of the city, had these apartments built around it, and we didn't know about it. And you know, monasteries, the grounds of a monastery are very important to its function and to its history. And when we remove those grounds, what are we left with? Does the building still convey its historic significance, or does it not? So in this case, we decided that the building is architecturally important enough that yes, but we didn't love it, and neither did the National Park Service.
Yeah, they were going after historic tax credits for this, and they lost the historic tax credits because of the landscaping being gone.
Yeah, and also doing it without telling.
Yeah, it's a bad idea to go for historic tax credits after you've done the work.
Yeah, for sure, we don't recommend it. Okay, the next one is materials, and this is just stuff like, is the house originally brick and has it been stuccoed like this guy? Or maybe we talk about windows. Did it have the original windows and now are they horrible plastic vinyl windows from Home Depot? And how, you know what I'm saying. I always like to say plastic instead of vinyl because it sounds worse. And property owners, I think it hits a little harder with property owners when I say, oh, well, I guess you can buy plastic windows for your house. But anyway, so, you know, materials are really important, and we'll talk a lot about that as well. And you know, it's sort of a countdown, right? How many materials can be obscured or removed until the house doesn't look like itself anymore? And this was an interesting one. We disagreed with the National Register about this one. It's not a super interesting story, but we thought that the changes to this house were enough so that it should be delisted, and the Park Service said, no, we don't agree. So it didn't get delisted, but we don't love it. So they filled in a glass block window on the side. Obviously the other windows have changed. They stuck it over the original brick,
Yeah.
So yeah, this is an interesting one. Okay.
And I will add, that's the one and only time the
Yeah.
National Register in Washington has disagreed with one of our decisions on a property like that. It's very odd. It hasn't happened since.
Seems like it
Yeah.
be delisted.
Yeah,
With
thank
all
you.
the-
That's
all
right.
the changes.
We agreed as well. Okay, so the next one, workmanship. This is a pretty simple one. You know, what are the demonstrations of craftsmanship? Are there leaded glass windows in this home?
Before we get, you can't put that photo up and not ask people if they know what it is.
Do you guys know what this is?
No, what is that?
That's fine. Eric, go ahead. But keep it brief.
It's a replica of the Ponderosa from Bonanza.
Oh, and
No,
geez.
Should've
Legitimately, it's in Mesa,
Yeah.
and it was done by the guy, the
Warren
Bonanza
Green.
guy. Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, he wanted to live in the Bonanza house, so he built it.
Yeah, well, it's part of a housing development
Yeah.
and and his
Yeah.
name was going to be associated with promoting it, but they really only built one Wild Westy looking thing there, which is this.
Yeah.
And since the original Ponderosa is actually a stage set, doesn't actually exist, though this is technically Ponderosa 2, it's the first Ponderosa to actually have been built.
Yeah. No, this house is listed on the National Register. It is so cool. And yeah, it is. But the workmanship is insane, right? You can see this fireplace and the beams in the ceiling and just every detail. So how many, this is one that these things can get lost over time, but we like to study it when it's here. Okay, so feeling is one of the like little nice fluffy ones that we talk about, and it really has to do with like how you feel when you're standing in front of the building. I mean, I like to think about it like that. That's not really it, but the before picture was a certain type of home, and the after picture is a different one, and it's not the same. And the before picture evokes old Tucson and a row apartment, row houses, the old Tucson row houses, and they're so close to the sidewalk. This is how old Tucson used to be. When they are converted to something like this, you don't have that understanding anymore.
This is on stone in Tucson.
Yeah, exactly.
I know the architect.
Yeah. Oh.
So this is, I think, really important for us.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of properties in this town that are vernacular. They're not a specific architectural style, little minor shacks.
Yeah.
Right? But
Yeah.
minor shacks are a part of the history of this town, so they
Exactly.
are important to Bisbee.
Yes.
Whereas maybe if there was one in, LA, then it wouldn't be important.
Whatever.
But it is here.
You're right.
So yeah, this is a really good one to think about when we're reviewing some of the things.
Yeah.
Is it still a little board and batten mining shack,
Yeah.
or is it now the side of a McMansion?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. And we'll talk about the Bisbee architectural styles, because this is like, that's really what I'm here to talk about, honestly.
Yeah.
Is how cool all your buildings are in Bisbee. But this is a big one. You're totally right, because Bisbee is built on feeling.
Right.
You drive up and down the hills, and it's the feeling of Bisbee that makes it Bisbee.
Right.
And little by little, all of a sudden, too many changes happen in the wrong way,
Right, little by little.
and it doesn't feel like Bisbee anymore.
Death of a thousand cuts.
Yeah, exactly. And the last one is association. It's pretty similar to feeling, in that, how is what the property was originally used for still what it's used for? And sometimes it's great to see the original use, or this is not the best example of association, but sometimes it's great to see the original use, and sometimes it's great to see a new use. And an association doesn't necessarily need to die because a property gets reused into something new. So, the segue is that when we are looking at integrity, all these aspects of integrity, it is really expressed through what we call character-defining features. And these are elements of design and workmanship, and scale and massing and things like that. So, but and ornamentation, right? It's these visual and really physical aspects that as a collection make the property read as historic. So this is Tudor. So the half timbering and the special chimney and the arched door and the rows of vertical windows and the steep roof. I mean, sometimes architectural styles and buildings can have a lot of character defining features, and sometimes it's just the roof line. Sometimes, or the fact that it's made out of brick. And that's it.
Yeah, particularly when we get into post-war housing, it's often, so there's, windows, original exterior, and roof shape. Those
Yeah.
are largely all the characteristics. You get on older houses, of course, pre-war, it's there's much more characteristics.
Definitely. And, if your building only has one or two character defining features and you change one of them, then you start compromising your integrity in a pretty serious way. So this is another thing that can be a little bit subjective in terms of how well does the building still communicate its significance.
And there's a lot of passion around windows.
Oh, we'll talk about windows.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a whole window thing to talk about. I know, I understand.
Some of the characteristics, I would argue, have to do with texture of the material.
Sure.
And we've had lots of debates lately about real board and batten
Mhm.
versus, manufactured fireproof composite, which has definitely, we're in a fire zone, right?
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
and that's a very smooth texture, and it
Mhm.
doesn't have wood grain,
it looks a little too sharp from the street.
right.
Yeah,
right,
no, I
and-
understand.
And so that texture being, a feature, it's the same with like, you go to Circle K and they got a fake stone wainscot around the
Yeah,
side.
you're
That
just like,
you can see it was just a piece of
Yeah.
concrete with texture that they glued to the wall
exactly.
versus a real stone hand placed,
Mhm.
wainscot or whatever, or foundation layer. And so
Of
it's,
course.
that's kind of the difference that we have to deal with sometimes and make a ruling on.
Yeah.
So.
And it's never cut and dry, it almost never is,
Yeah.
so, we'll talk a lot more about materials, towards the back half of this, but, go ahead for the next one, please.
Oh, sure.
This is a slide that I love to explain, because integrity is not the same thing as condition, or what shape, quote unquote, the building is in. And something can be in really bad shape, like the Buckhorn Baths on the top right, but it has all of its character defining features are still there. The stucco, the vigas, the porch is gone now, but it's still there. The windows, the shutters. So what you look at a building like that and you go, oh no, that should be torn down. But when you look closer, you say, no, this looks exactly like it did when it was built. And what we love it when things have good integrity and are in good condition. And, when something has poor integrity and is in poor condition, that's often when we see developers snooping around, or often also not. Maybe they just wanted to tear down something because they're not great people. But something can also have poor integrity but be in really good condition. The Portland building is the best example because it was so architecturally significant. It was this like absolute bastion of early postmodern civic architecture. And it was listed on the National Register like 10 years after it was built because it was recognized about how significant it was. You know what I'm about to say, yeah. But the building was making people sick because it had so little windows and so little circulation. And so the city of Portland, Oregon decided to reclad it. And it's in great condition, looks fancy, but the integrity is completely gone and it got delisted. So it's a tough one, but
It's a weird situation where delisting, sometimes a treatment that's going to delist a property is the correct thing
Yeah.
to do.
yeah, historic preservation is crazy and very complicated sometimes. But the other thing that we look at, especially when we are sort of trying to fight demolitions of buildings, is that condition does not or is not supposed to have an effect on a building's eligibility for the National Register. It should not matter. Yeah, and you don't think about it really like that, right? Sometimes you're like, oh, that's in bad shape. Like, it's not preservation anymore. But something like Buckhorn Baths or whatever, I mean, when we're evaluating a building for its eligibility for the National Register, we're supposed to look past the condition of the building and to understand what is actually still left. So in order to preserve the integrity and the character-defining features, we obviously default and use the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties. This is something you guys know. We really like to think about them as just like common sense historic preservation principles. I think they're common sense. You guys think they're common sense. Other people don't always, but these are just the overall standards. We'll talk about rehabilitation next, I think. But they really are guidelines for how to not mess up your buildings, right? Mm-hmm. How to physically preserve them, how to, and also how to make changes in the future and manage that change in a way that will, of course, still work for the building occupants, but preserve that history. Yeah.
I would say that this list is probably the most important list and the most broken list that, in my opinion, we have to deal with.
Yeah.
Number three, avoid false history. That's where people try and build something that looks old
Exactly.
because that's what they think is supposed to happen,
Right.
which is actually the opposite of what you want to do.
Exactly.
And number six, repair rather than replace. And
Mhm.
that's where things like the windows, doors, and cladding
Mhm.
come in, and where board members just willingly ignore those rules and want to replace. And that's kind of where we have a lot of friction as a board. Number
Yep.
six especially.
Yeah, and you're totally right, and you guys are not unique in that friction at all, I
Yeah.
promise. We actually have fresh 2023 federal guidelines from the National Park Service about substituting historic materials, and I printed them all out for
Oh,
you guys,
thank
because
you.
it's so exciting.
Thank you.
And these substitute materials guidelines actually come newer to us than standard 6. So, you know, repair rather than replace might be considered as, you know, where possible, preferable to repair rather than replace. So there's, you know, we can get into semantics, but
Yeah, and of course, the standards don't take into account economic factors either.
right, or
which is the big one
environmental
that comes in.
factors,
So it's-
Right,
yeah.
economic factors. I mean, yeah, there's a lot. These last standards came out in 2017, and the world has changed significantly since then, even just a few years ago. So,
And just to be clear, these are shorthand.
oh yeah,
actual
these
standards, not the actual standards.
right. I have, what do you call it? Paraphrased these
However,
to fit on the slide.
I also think these make more sense because they're condensed
Right.
down so
Thank you.
easily.
I appreciate that. Okay, so most preservation projects we recognize are considered rehabilitation. Somewhere like Bisbee, which is so unique and so old, sometimes we'll have a building that we want to restore, you know, take back to its original time period, or just preserve, like, you know, make sure that it stays exactly the way it is. But in practicality, for practicality's sake, rehabilitation means taking a building, often that's vacant or underutilized, and giving it a new life and a new program and new use, and really bringing it back into its community and its context again. So the big thing about rehabilitation, the bold part about it, is that the new work should ideally be visually differentiated from the historic fabric of the building. In many kinds of ways. It doesn't have to necessarily be just in cladding. It can be in, you know, features, proportion, mass, and scale, blah blah blah, all these things.
So what's the reason for that?
Sorry.
Why do you want it to be different? What's the reason?
You know, the National Park Service wants it to be different, and it is to avoid this false sense of history.
Yeah, that's largely to avoid the false sense of
Yeah.
history, but it dates back to the 1850s with Viollet-le-Duc's doing work on Notre Dame Cathedral. You all remember when it burned a couple of years ago, there was a steeple that fell over, and that was something that he had added in the 1850s.
But no one knew.
But meanwhile, in England, at that same time, an art critic named John Ruskin was looking at that going, well, that's not what the original architects intended. They should not have done that. The new work should look like it was built in 1850. So that's the origins of
I
it.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes sense.
And then it's carried on through their Charter of Athens, I can't remember what year that was, on down to the National Park Service's standards. So
Yeah.
it's still one that's hotly debated. There's a couple of, I think Notre Dame teaches to ignore that and do replication, but
That's
in
your
Arizona, we've had a long history of separate differentiating.
Yeah, and we'll talk about false standard 6. We'll have a slide about that in a minute, but I'll just talk about it right now. The differentiation, this idea of avoiding false history, like I just thought of a Bisbee example. If we have a mining shack on a property, we would not want to build 9 more mining shacks in 2024 on that property and make it look like there was a mining camp here, or, you know, presume that we know where all the shacks were. Or in 2024, we would not want to take that mining shack and just expand it, but using the same, you know, wood siding, board and battens, whatever, and then someone who doesn't know anything about Bisbee or mining comes and says, oh my god, these miner shacks were huge. Why is everyone complaining about the size of their miner shacks? Look at this one, it's enormous and it's old, and really it's not. So it is about staying true, it is about communicating the truth of whatever was happening in that time, and that's why we want to preserve buildings in the first place.
And of course, the poster child for this is your neighbors to the north, Tombstone.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's my example of
Yeah.
slide, let's be real.
Yeah, I mean, they literally put up more Wild Western looking facades over actual historic facades because it matches what they
Oh,
think it
right.
should look
Yeah,
like.
it's-
That sort of thing.
It's insane. Okay, so we'll just go through these. The first standard is this new use, and ideally it has a minimal change to those character defining features. So when we always want to bring old properties back to life. This is the old Buick dealership, Phoenix Motor Company, sorry, in downtown Phoenix, and now it's the Van Buren. It's a music venue, super popular. But it looks the same, and on the inside, the cool roof is still there, and this was a really great project. So yeah, it has to do. Oh, go ahead.
For years, it was just stuccoed over. It was
Yeah.
just a big stucco box. And when they started working on it, they had no idea what they were going to find when they started peeling off the stucco. But thankfully, they found pretty much the original stuff underneath. It hadn't been removed. It was there.
That's why in historic preservation we always carry a massive contingency, because we never know what we're gonna find when we start taking the building apart. Okay, so the next one is really to just, like, it's more about those character defining features, to avoid removal or obfuscation of those character defining features. And the Casa Grande City Hall was its old high school, and it still looks like a high school, still got those cool eaves and the windows, the auditorium is still there on the side. But it's not City Hall, and on the inside, you know, there's some stuff that's still there, but it's a very, very highly functioning building. Okay, the next one, here we go, false sense of history. Here's Tombstone. As we know, these second stories on a lot of these Tombstone buildings are at 3/4 scale, which is the same thing that they do in Disneyland.
Yeah.
Street in Disneyland.
Very
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah, and, you know, these well-meaning folks standing by this fence post, they don't know that. And they think that this Wild West town is super authentic. And you go up to this Longhorn restaurant and you like whack the block and it's pressed tin. Literally goes, it's like thump, 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 thump. It's not even concrete block, it's not even cast stone. So, this is exactly what it is. This is a false sense of historical
Well,
tone.
and beyond that, there's a photo of this building in 1904.
Oh, yeah.
It's not this building. That building burned. This building is a 1950s building. But they have the photo of what was there in 1904, so this is a 5/8 replica of that since it was
I'm sorry,
smaller.
5/8.
Yeah, I think it's 5/8.
I'll remember that for next time when
Well,
I
still,
when I
yeah,
slam
pretty close.
Tombstone.
Yeah, it was.
It's like the U of A and ASU, you know, rivalry is
Sure.
Bisbee and Tombstone.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, there's between Bisbee and Tombstone, like who's more authentic? There's no question at all. But you know, people love Tombstone, and people come from all over the world to see Tombstone, and it works for them. So, yeah. Anyway, next.
I've got a quick question.
Yeah, of course.
A lot of people in Bisbee are, let's say, renovating their homes.
Yeah.
A lot of these were built around 1900, 1905.
Mhm.
And we tend to look at the home today and what will be the effect of the changes.
Mhm.
But the homes didn't look like that when they were built in 1905.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you handle that? You know, there are sometimes pictures available, but in
Yeah.
most cases not.
Yeah.
So, you know, we tend to be sort of maybe specific with people that you can't do that,
Yeah.
but that isn't the home that was built.
No. You're up. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I'm done.
Okay, that's a big one, and we almost never have a historic photograph of a building. Bisbee, you know, its commercial corridor was really well photographed, but we almost never know what a house originally looked like. And in Bisbee, on top of that, we call, you know, the residential architecture is so vernacular.
Yeah.
And the kind of the academic definition of vernacular architecture is that the inhabitants of the home were the ones that altered it and changed it over time to meet their needs. So, you know, the original board and batten siding was letting in too much wind and they just had a baby and the baby was too cold. Let's put shiplap over it. You know, we had another baby, we need to add a new room on the back. It's these accretions that we call them over time that really give the house its character in a vernacular sense. So, you know, the answer is, like, if the house at the, you know, in the present day is good at communicating, you know, its historic character enough, and if, you know, a lot of those like additions that have been made over time, these changes over time, they become part of the historic character and the narrative of the house itself. It's part of the story. So, you know, it's subjective again, right? And I always say that historic preservation takes really good instincts, and sometimes it's a gut feeling, and like it's really hard to write a staff report on a gut feeling. I know that's literally impossible, but yeah, I'll talk about this later too. But I was thinking about the intent of the owner, like if the owner really loves their property and it's important to them, then I'm far more willing to have a conversation with them about the changes they want to make.
Yeah, and so I participated in the final part of the survey for the Bisbee Residential Historic District around the 2010, maybe 2009 to 2010, and was wandering up and down the streets with an architect named Don Ryden, who's done some work here. And Don was noticing all of the porch posts in Bisbee Residential, and he's going, these are all from Home Depot, I recognize these.
Oops.
And he was at first thinking, well, we gotta not let any of these in with these porch posts, but then he started to realize, which for whatever reason I figured it out much faster than him, but that was a characteristic of the neighborhood now. Those changes were there. She'll get to this later, I don't wanna, I'll let you tell the name that we came up with for
Oh yeah,
Bisbee.
yeah.
Tell it now.
It's called Bisbee Eclectic.
Yeah.
That's
Give
the
it an
style.
architectural
Yeah,
style.
it's a brand new architectural style, dropped like fresh just for Bisbee.
Yeah, we literally invented it for
Yeah.
that nomination, and because it suddenly made sense, and we started looking at it like, okay, this would be inappropriate in most places, but in Bisbee, it's part of the character of Bisbee. This makes sense for Bisbee.
It's such a question.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
I've got a
you know,
related question though. You know, again, if you look at what these places were in 1905,
mhm.
a lot of them were just slapped together with
Yeah.
whatever scraps they could find. And the world has moved on, you know, it's over 100 years now.
Houses need to be more solid than they used to.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing, but I don't think people would be able to stand living in a lot of those homes
No.
if they were totally original.
You're right.
So that's why a lot of them have changed through the years.
Yeah, out of necessity.
So, you know, where do you draw the line?
Well, the idea is to kind of preserve the essential characteristics. So if you're looking at a ranch house and you're making changes to it, does it remain looking like, does it still have its ranchiness
Yeah.
after the
Yeah.
proposed changes are done?
Bisbee-ness, if you will.
Bisbee-ness in this case.
Shackiness.
Yeah,
Shackiness.
yeah, just sort of
Yeah.
a little shacky.
Yeah, and that's a bit vague, but yeah, I mean, the idea is, for most preservation, is not to freeze something in time, but rather make sure it remains functional and useful for people, so it continues to be taken care of.
Yeah.
And that, so we don't end up in a situation where nobody wants to live there because it's so primitive or
Yeah.
whatever. There are preservationists out there, usually not in the professional community, but there are preservationists out there that say things like, oh yeah, if I had my way, I'd make everybody drive period-appropriate cars and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
that's not what, it's not how society functions. So, you know, adding on satellite dishes and stuff like that.
Kitchens,
Kitchens.
You know, bathrooms.
Yeah, all of that stuff, you know, you try to preserve it from, at least from our perspective, from what you see from the street, so
Right.
it
Yeah.
conveys,
Exactly.
as you're walking, which, I mean, in Bisbee, there are some houses that convey nothing from the street, because you can't see them from the street, but,
Conveys the feeling
Yeah.
of Bisbee being in the
Sure.
east, right?
Or,
So-
yeah, or, I mean, part of the feeling in Bisbee is, what's back there? I can't see it, you know.
yeah.
Okay, so standard 6, these are the materials, and,
Sorry.
Yes, and this is the hotel building in Florence. This is obviously an exact restoration, accepting the height of the balcony. As you can see, it did not meet code anymore, but they got the pattern of the rails right. So, but you know, they did not use the same materials as they did. I think the big verticals are steel. It is more durable and it's gonna last longer and it looks exactly the same. So, it looks exactly the same from the right of way. When you're standing up there touching the balcony, obviously you can tell it's not wood. But they got a good brick match. It might not be perfect, but this building, like the whole cornice was gone and like half of the short wall was just like ruins.
Yeah.
So they matched the bricks nicely. They nailed the window and door openings and everything. So this is a good example of kind of an extreme. Yeah.
There's a building that looks almost exactly like that in Douglas.
Yeah, yes, it does. Okay. This is the other one, right? When we add to buildings, when we add new construction to historic districts, we want to make sure they are compatible and respectful. And this is one of like the most mind-blowing examples. It's a little bit hard to see, but I was in Seattle at the University of Washington, and on the far left is their original Gothic 1928 whatever library. And it's beautiful and it's intact and it's in perfect condition. Nothing's been changed, except it wasn't big enough for this giant university. So in the 50s, they did this addition, and that's kind of the one in the middle. And you can see the verticality. You can see kind of the Gothic-ish arches. It's clearly a mid-century style, but they interpreted and kind of adapted a lot of those Gothic elements and turned it into a building from the 50s. You can see like kind of the cool lattices at the top, the pointies. Even the spandrels at the in between each floor have a similar scale to the ones from the 1928 building. And then in 1990 whatever, they realized that they needed an even bigger library. So on the right is the third addition to the library from the 90s, and it's brick, which is actually the same material as the original 1928 one, but it's a completely different brick, right?
Yeah.
And it still has the little pointies and even the vertical pilasters in between the windows. They end with these little almost finial looking things on top, and the spandrels underneath the windows in the 90s edition have these little X's in them. So this is like, my mind was blown. I was like freaking out, and everyone thought I was crazy taking all these pictures. But this is an amazing example of how to add to a building over time.
And I absolutely do not know what I would have thought of this.
Yeah.
Really?
If it was presented to me and I was on a design review.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, wow, that is wild.
Yeah, and the University of Washington's design review board had to think about that,
Yeah.
And
Super interesting.
it is so interesting. Glad you guys think so. Because they could have just replicated the original one.
Right.
But then everyone would have thought like, oh, this library is way bigger than what they would have needed in 1928. Why is it like this?
Other arts do this, like music. You get remixes and interpretations. Of
Yeah.
somebody will do a different version of a Beatles song. You recognize it, but it's clearly somebody else singing, and they've got their own instruments and stuff that they're using, and so it's a similar sort of thing.
Actually, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, me neither.
That's
I
a
like that
very good way to
example.
put it, yeah.
Okay, standard nine, the next one, let's just not talk about this. The one, the building in the middle with the Harley Davidson, you guys know what's up. The building in the middle with the Harley Davidson sign, that facade is from the 60s. Bill Otwell did it as an infill, right? But this is Whiskey Row, and it doesn't stick out. You don't notice it. It is appropriate, but it looks a little different, right? You can tell it's not from 1900 when after the fire. Okay, the next one. And this one's pretty simple. We always try to make changes reversible if possible. So people are like, oh, can I put awnings on my windows? It's like, yes, you can put awnings on your windows. You can always take them off. The next owner can always take them off. If I want to do an addition to a building, this is right by our office. This is the state agriculture building. And this is the addition on the right side. It was done in the 50s, and you can tell there's a little hyphen there, very clearly different, and they're actually going to be demolishing it soon, so we'll find out how reversible it really is, but yeah. All right, so
I've got a real quick story on that.
Yeah.
One of my projects, 37 Main Street, the Fair Store, which is the Restoration Museum now. Somebody ran a car into it,
That
And,
sucks.
and we had already had a restoration plan in place. And the cool thing is, when they remodeled it in the seventies, they, instead of demoing stuff, removing it, and they were doing all sorts of energy, making the windows smaller and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They actually very carefully stuccoed over old fritted glass. They very carefully stuccoed over old wood millwork.
Whoa.
And so-
cool.
So our contractor very carefully removed that stuff, didn't break any of the glass, and it was all sitting preserved underneath the stucco.
And it's beautiful.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And it was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously, that was
I
such a
just got like
surprise.
goosebumps, you telling me that.
So mad props to the contractor.
Yes.
That, well, kind of ruined the facade, but saved it
Yeah.
But saved
at the
it.
same time.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Also props to your contractor, who knows
Oh, yeah.
how to be careful with historic buildings. If you wanna give me his name,
Brett
that'd be great. But that's a perfect example, and we almost never see that, right? In the 60s, they were like, let's blow out this old-looking storefront and put in a new one. So that's another testament to how cool and unique Bisbee is, that someone had the forethought to recognize how important that historic material was.
I was wondering why that turned out so much different when he redid it. Now I know.
Yeah.
when the one side was done and the other side wasn't.
Oh,
You
cool.
know, the left side was done first and you looked in the window and went,
Yeah.
whoa,
Because I watched the car
that's
drive into it.
original.
Oh God, you saw it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God.
You saw the car drive into it?
Well, I was right around the corner working at the Legion.
Oh.
Boom! It was like 7 o'clock in the morning.
That car did us a favor,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It did, it actually did.
you know?
Gave us a little preservation budget.
There you go. It's a happy ending to that story. We'll just talk about a couple examples. I'll go through these pretty quick. This is obviously going to lose its integrity, right? You see on the left, this is a you know, light international streamline deco-ish style house,
Yeah.
bricks, everything. Then they like did this to it. They put this weird chimney volume in the middle. And for at first glance, someone who doesn't know would be like, oh, that's an interesting like mid-century house, except it looks weird and I can't decide why. And the why is because it's not, right? So this was a pretty easy one. These are all examples that we have either come up with or I have reviewed in the past couple of years. Okay, yeah, the tree, honestly, the landscaping, anyway, that's another story. All right, the next one, this one's very similar to that little greenhouse, stuck with the brick, plastic windows. And you notice they changed the roof color, which is fine, we don't mind. And they did keep the Spanish tile ridge lines, which I love, but they did not ask us before they did this, so thumbs down.
Yeah.
This is another one about kind of feeling, right? In the next slide. This is in also one of the two summaries.
yeah.
And as you can see, the original building on the left, it's just not there anymore.
Yeah.
And while this building on the right might not look totally out of place in the Barrio, it's not real. This is a total false sense of history. Okay, this is another false sense of history one. So this is
Wow.
like probably my favorite example. Yeah, this is down in Tucson. We actually have an original photograph of the house, which almost never happens because it was from a newspaper. It got written up in the newspaper, it was so significant. And this is what they did to it.
Wow.
And you know, a rounded entry element like that, and the weather vanes and the cupolas and all these gables, they're not elements of this architectural style. They just don't go here. They just create a new house that isn't historic anymore. And you can see the little, I actually don't even know which of the little gables this is in the old picture.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It looks like it's kind of to the right of the rounded turret.
Yeah.
You know? They kept the 3 ventilation
They did,
posts.
but they also replicated it on the other ones too. I know it's
Never-
crazy. Like you,
never-
like
Oh, you got it.
Wow.
Yeah.
this is what I mean by like each historic preservation project is just like we almost kind of have to start from scratch, right?
Well, and this one was interesting because the owner of the house was insisting that it should still be considered
yeah.
historic after they made all these changes.
They didn't get it.
Because they don't understand.
They didn't understand, and what they had asked for was a historic-looking house. This is actually modeled on another house somewhere in Tucson. And the architect, some of you probably know, was Brooks Jeffrey, who's
Brooks
did
this?
Brooks did this in charge of Camp Naco.
I
and he
didn't
was-
know that.
Yeah, and so when she
Let me
came
put a little
to-
note in my
Yeah.
slide here real quick.
Yeah, but when she took this before a state review board that Brooks happened to be on, he's like, I never said it was going to be historic after you did this.
Yeah.
You said you wanted a historic looking
Looking.
project
Yeah.
or building, so that was it. So
Yeah.
Brooks admirably defended what he had done and what the results would be if she went ahead and did this.
We had that happen in a house up on Tombstone,
Mhm.
Katie, there was a house that had wood siding,
Mhm.
and the people were, lived in Michigan or something, the contractor stuck out it and built out the windows. You remember that one, Joe? And it was turned into like a Santa Fe home.
Oh God.
And it-
Oh God.
and-
But it's
And
Arizona.
then, and then it got delisted, and they said, well, they came before DRB, wondered why, and we gotta explain why.
No,
If you
thinking
guys
it's,
remember what address that is, I will use it and put it in my PowerPoint.
Okay.
Yeah.
You remember the address, Joe? It's up by the water tank there.
It's about 700.
Okay, I'll look for
It's
it.
on the left-hand side.
702 the garage is, I know the garage was 702, had a different address than the
That's
house.
right.
Awesome.
702 was the garage. Oh,
So
that was
left-hand
orange
side.
place, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
now I'm thinking it's the gable to the left
Yeah.
of the turn
Yeah, it's
because
on
of
the
the
left.
tree and the curve of the street,
No,
right?
there you
It's-
go.
So
Yeah.
you really, it is hard to tell.
Well, and you got two gables with like a opposite gable in between it.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, that's where the turret is.
Yeah.
Tur-
Bizarre. I'm glad you guys get it. Everyone in this room gets it.
This is sometimes a battle we have
Yeah.
up here, and we shouldn't be having that, we should all know that.
So is that last one a good example of what she was initially saying about when people come to the board and, well, this house looks like that? Because that's what you just said. They used that, a replica from another historic house,
Right.
and then they were screwed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
So
one of the
that's-
other crucial things, you're right, one of the other crucial things about that is that was not under a zoning overlay, so there was no
Right.
historic review for it. Tucson only has 5 historic districts that have a zoning overlay
Yeah.
over it. The other 15 or so of them are just going through regular city review. And that's Sam Hughes,
No,
despite being
regular.
one of the largest,
Regular SHPO review.
well, yeah, if they come to us, but this person wasn't in the tax program.
Oh,
They-
right.
They applied for it
But
after,
yeah, I mean,
so
they
we
just
didn't even see
they
it.
just got their building permits and went to town. But you're right, and it's a balance, exactly. It's a balance because we do, you know, if a house doesn't look original anymore, we do want to take cues from the houses around it. You know, this house has been stuccoed, but we know Bisbee Eclectic is usually board and batten or some sort of wood siding. So like, let's bring that back. You're completely right. But what you never want to do is point to another house across town that's bigger and doesn't look like yours and be like, make my house like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Did I
Oh,
explain
yeah.
that right? Okay.
Definitely. The board hears that a lot.
I'm sure. And
We do. we
the
do.
other thing, and I'll reiterate this a couple of times, but I am here, I'm literally like the certified local government planner for the State Historic Preservation Office. And I am here generally to back you guys, to back you up on the decisions that you make. I very rarely go against or disagree with a decision from a city. And at the same time, if you guys are stumped on a case, send it to me. And I'll do a recommendation. And I'll review it as well. And you know, sometimes, I don't know if that would be worse or better with your property owners, but I'm always happy to help however you might
I
think it
will
might be
say,
helpful.
historically, we've had a few property owners that have tried to pit us against, well, Joe, in the past. Joe's the
Yeah.
old building inspector.
Oh my god, it's so good to meet you. Yeah.
Just sitting over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we've had them try to, or play us against the DRB by coming to us directly.
We know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and.
Yes, yeah, that happened to me like my first week at Bisbee.
Oh, it did happen
No,
your
my
first
first week
week
at
here.
SHPO.
Yeah,
Oh, I got scared
Yeah.
and then Eric was like, no.
Yeah, sometimes it's just so emotional,
Yes.
you know, for
Yes.
the homeowner,
Mm.
that they actually just can't even control
Yeah.
I get up in front of city councils and I say, look, zoning is emotional.
Yeah,
Zoning is so emotional. It goes without saying that historic preservation is emotional,
Yeah.
but something as black and white as zoning, as official as zoning. Anyway, okay, the next one.
oh, this one, yeah, this one's
So-
interesting.
What about brand new construction?
Mhm.
Okay, can it be a contributing structure?
No, we will
Okay,
talk about
But
it.
it'll still go through DRB.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll definitely talk about it. Brand new construction is a whole thing, obviously. A brand new building can never be considered historically contributing, to answer your question. Okay, the next one,
So
where am
we
I?
didn't talk about this.
No, we didn't talk about this one, sorry.
Yeah.
This is my favorite house in Tucson. It is a international style, very early, post-war home with a second story and a sleeping porch on the back. And I didn't mince my words, that's literally what this house is. This stone water table is original, it's all original. You look at this and you're like, oh, obviously that second story is added. It's not. It's always been like this. It is so unique. There's no other house like this in Arizona, I would venture to say.
We've not found any.
And
What year is this house?
1940,
I wanna say
4.
eight.
no, it was like,
Earlier? Okay.
like fresh
I know
post-war.
one in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
it's like this. urban
Exactly,
growth,
right?
Is it the one that's in the Hollywood Hills?
but- No, it's probably Long Beach, but.
Oh, okay.
If you
The cover
come up with a
says-
picture of it, send it to me so I can make a little comparison, because yeah. So, and this house had been vacant for decades, and I saw it on the MLS for way too cheap, and I was like, oh, this is a goner. And the blessings of all historic preservation blessings, I got a cold call from the new owner, and she was like, I love this house, I'm obsessed with it, but I need to make it a little bigger. And I said, let's get to the drawing board. So I helped her come up with this. And you can see on the right, there's a one-story addition on the side.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she is not, she's doing it out of stucco, not entirely brick. There's some brick elements. Flat roof instead of the gables and the pitches. And she's got a new little porch lattice, a little brise soleil over there. I know, it's like, yes, she did it right. So, and it is behind the home. We say complementary and subordinate, right? There's no question that this would ever overwhelm the house. We actually should go look at this to see if she ever finished the project.
Oh, yeah.
All of us?
Yeah,
Should
let's
we
all
all
go, let's get in the van.
Can we apply this here in Bisbee?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
If we have the minor shack and they want to add 400 square feet,
totally. If you wanna add 400 square feet to a minor shack, do a flat roof or a shed roof. And
not that
maybe,
any shack has enough room to.
no, sure, of course. If you wanna add
Yeah, right.
1,400 square feet to a minor shack, there will be a way to do it
Okay.
and still keep it contributing. You're
As
exactly
long as we're
right.
not inventing the history.
Right.
We'll do a flat roof, but it still might be 10 feet higher than the rest of the house.
You know, it's just, and again, in a place, I always, no, that's a really good
Well,
question.
because the hills.
Exactly, well exactly Bisbee, hashtag Bisbee, but we always encourage new additions to be visually, the roof lines to be lower than the original home. But if it's a minor shack and it's in a Bisbee hill, that might not be possible. So we need to just get creative and flexible.
Yeah, it's like some of our normal rules for how we manage our historic tax program get broken in Tucson because of their weird shaped lots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
In some areas where, you know, you've got the house built at the back of the lot, so you can't really put anything hidden, so we have to kind of figure out workarounds to try
can't
to.
put it behind.
Yeah, you can't put it behind, so you have to build to the side or something like that, so, you know, it ends up requiring flexibility, and the same is kind of true here
Yeah.
with the strange shaped miners lots and stuff like that as well. I remember our old architect had land here that he couldn't even access because the driveway was owned by someone else, so.
Oh, there's so many weird things like that.
Yeah.
This house,
Yeah.
this specific house was not in a historic district.
It is.
It is, but
It
not
is.
under zoning.
Not
overlay.
under, it didn't have the zoning.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you guys have it a little bit more cut and dry in that your
What about
zone.
our Warren district?
Yeah, that could happen in Warren unless zoning overlay gets put over it, but
Which they honestly should do, but.
they should.
Warren is a case-by-case basis right now, isn't it?
I mean,
No,
all of these
Warren
should
is
be
not
case by
enough.
case.
Yeah.
People do whatever they want in Warren right now.
Yeah.
And
right.
For
There's
now.
no homes in Warren that come before you guys.
Right.
No.
If you hear about one, if you hear about someone that wants to do something in their house in Warren, send them to me. I will just do a voluntary review for them. I'll just give them some ideas. You know, happy to do that too. Anything I can do to like save a house from getting messed up is what I'll do.
Well, because like in Warren, there's some houses that's like, okay, whatever, do whatever you want. But then there's other houses like up to Vista Park and stuff that need to stay preserved.
For sure.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
But there's a lot of houses in Warren that also
Not just
do
on the
that,
Vista.
you know, that are not on the Vista.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't
yeah,
have to be
yeah.
even just the fanciest
Well,
ones.
and
Some of the
No, it's
smaller
just
ones, too.
there's certain
Yeah.
areas in Warren where it's like, don't do nothing there. But
Yeah.
if you're like on the back end of the railroad tracks or something.
We're hoping within the next year or so that at least it'll get listed on the National Register finally, and the tax program will be available to most of the residents, so
Property tax.
property tax
Yeah.
program. So
Is-
then they'll have us kind of overseeing it a bit to sort of have some control over what goes on there. But of course, that's voluntary, and if they don't want to be in the tax program, then we have no official say
Yeah, no
over it.
leverage.
Yeah.
Don't you have people beginning a survey in Warren?
Yeah, it's almost
Yes, the survey's
It's almost
done.
done. The survey's
What's
done.
left to do is to build the context, because I think the original survey and work on it was done in '91, and it took it up to
Oh, wow, okay.
like World War II, I think. So now we need to take the history of it up to, well, I think the mine closing is the safe way to do
Yeah, and
stuff,
that
so
was
75.
genius that she did it that
So,
way.
so yeah, and they're, the city is, my understanding is the city is planning to apply for a grant to pay for the rest of that. You may know more than I do on that.
Yeah.
So you should have just gotten something from, you or Steve should have just
It would
gotten
have been
something
Steve,
from
but I'll
Jessica.
put you on the
Yeah.
list too.
Okay, good list.
So
All
we need
Because
right.
there's different parts of Warren that have different significance, you know, like the
Yeah.
Vista has its own significance because like
Yes.
executives are living there.
Mhm.
But there's a bunch of, like Phelps Dodge houses
Yeah.
that sort of look like little adobes with porches
Yeah,
that workers were living
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
And,
also
you know,
super important.
management people and stuff like that, you know, so,
Mhm.
And then there's the ball field, which
yeah, oh yeah.
may become a National Historic Landmark one day because of the deportation.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
well, we just don't have time. We only have one more
Yeah.
hour.
Oh, okay, sorry, yeah,
Part of
sorry.
this is my fault. I can talk about historic preservation for 24 hours. When you were like, what about like an hour and 45 minutes? I was like, done. So
Without taking a break.
yeah, that's true. Let's skip to the yellow slides. If these are just more examples of interesting redesigns. Okay, this one's not that interesting. The next one. Okay, this is bad. This is capital V bad. We didn't know this was happening. We had no idea. Original picture, top left, and then the bottom one is what it looked like under construction, and you can see daylight through the house. It is just the front wall left.
There's nothing left.
Nothing behind
yeah.
it.
Uh-huh.
They
Yes.
took they
Oh,
demolished. yeah, it's just remodel. We're just doing
Well,
a
that's
remodel.
We did one more.
They took out the porte cochere, which we would consider a character-defining feature. And then they built that giant second story on the top, and we like.
That's what you gotta do.
We have never, I mean, we've delisted things faster, but this was such a cut and dry one. It was like, no question, you're out.
It's a mask now, it's just.
Well,
Exactly,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
a great way to put it.
So my question is, why did you buy that house?
Yeah!
If
great
you wanted
question.
that house, why did you buy that house?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or why didn't you buy a house
Slippers.
in a new subdivision that looks
Yeah,
like
because they're just building a new house.
Yeah,
Or they didn't want the house, they wanted the location.
yeah.
Well,
That's
Well,
sometimes
I mean,
happens.
they may have thought that that was a good effort to maintain.
You know, sometimes the
From
property
their
owners,
perspective, that was, you know,
Yeah,
in this case, I know it was a flipper. Yeah.
Monsters.
And so flippers, and like I said, a lot of it does sometimes come down to the intent of the property owner. If you're a flipper, I'm not giving you the benefit of the doubt, sorry. You don't get it. Okay, let's get the next one and go to the next one. This is a house in the Garfield Historic District in Phoenix that actually got its integrity restored. The green was what it looked like when the district was created, and it was considered a non-contributor because it
Oh,
had
yeah, interesting.
it had too many changes to the outside. The new owner is this guy that, you know, he said, I want my house to contribute again. He unenclosed the porch. He opened up the original porch and we recontributed it.
And it's beautiful.
It's beautiful, and you just go, yeah. Anyway,
Wow.
yeah, isn't that? It's just it looks like a completely different house.
It
Yeah.
does.
Okay, the next one, this is pretty straightforward. Obviously, these little buildings on Miracle Mile in Tucson didn't make the cut when they had these exteriors done to them. This one, the next one in Indian Ridge is interesting because what they did is they took a prefab, like a little mobile home, and they just stuck it next to their original house in Indian Ridge and like extended the carport.
Oh, yeah.
And
Tough one.
it looks horrible, right? It doesn't look like Indian Ridge. This is not good, but it's reversible.
Yeah.
They didn't touch the original
Okay.
property.
Yeah.
So while it's not great, I don't think we're gonna delist these folks.
I mean,
But
it's, the scale is the issue with it.
Right.
It's too big, but it's
And it-
separate, it's reversible.
materials,
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
lot of issues
yeah.
with it. But, you know, the intent of this property owner is obviously not to participate in the beautiful harmony of Indian Ridge, so there's that.
Yeah.
But, anyway, the next one is meh, whatever, that one's too long of a story. The next slide is ultimately one of the things I wanted to come here and talk about, is that in terms of the National Historic Register, the National Register of Historic Places, only we can make that official call. Sometimes neighbors can point fingers at other neighbors and say, you're not gonna be eligible anymore. And that gets flung around a lot. And some people think they know when they don't know. And, you know, this eligibility, you know, I'm listed, I'm gonna delist you, like, it can feel threatening. And it can get sort of flung. But if you ever hear that, just say, you guys just talk to SHPO, they'll let you know.
Yeah, and the other thing,
Yeah.
if we're discussing delisting a property, you guys are a CLG, so we will be coming to you.
Of
going,
course.
Hey, what's your input on this? What do you think about this?
Or what happened here, tell us the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, we did this with Phoenix, literally this week, where there's a house not too dissimilar to the one that's just a mask now.
Yeah.
That we were talking to the city, and the city said, oh, well, the owners have now come forth with a plan, and we think it will still be a contributor. And we're like, okay, we'll wait and see what comes out of this
Yeah.
before we do anything, so.
Definitely. Okay, so now let's talk about Bisbee specifically. Like we said, this Bisbee eclectic is this architectural style that was coined for the Bisbee Historic District nomination, specifically for the residential properties. And I found the statistic, only 9.6% of the historic homes in Bisbee have an architectural style that you can point at and say, that's Queen Anne, or
Right.
that's Pueblo Revival,
Right.
or that's a Craftsman. This is excluding places like Warren,
Yeah.
but the rest are just Bisbee eclectic. And again, it might be hard to like pick out and list the character defining features of Bisbee eclectic, but when you can feel it when you see it. And you know, the homes are similar but not. They feel like they go together, but they don't look the same.
Yeah.
And it's this very it's just like, it's something that's palpable but hard to describe. And I had a hard time describing it, to be honest. I wanted to try and like break it down like we do in other, you know, regular historic preservation ways, and I was like, I'm not gonna try to do this, it's not worth it. And just a little context, I learned that the nomination writers came up with 3 reasons why Bisbee eclectic is Bisbee eclectic, and the first one was, you know, obviously that residents were just able to afford these, you know, simple functional buildings that ended up being vernacular, and that they were able to change and modify to meet their needs over time. There were only basic building construction techniques available. There was nothing fancy going on in Bisbee at the turn of the century, and you know, there were not a lot of professional architects involved. Again, like excepting somewhere like Warren, but you know, up in the hills, you know, we don't have a registered architect with his scale and his drawings, and it was just like, here's some leftover wood. Let's build a house for my family. So. Interesting stuff.
And one thing about that I've learned from, you know, multi-generational Bisbee folks is when Bisbee started out underground mining, and when they expanded and opened the pit, huge parts of Bisbee were had to move to make way for the pit.
Ah.
So what they did is they took old houses and they hacked them apart. And they sold walls, they sold
Mhm.
roofs, and they added those to other houses in Old Bisbee
That
as
is so
additions.
cool.
And I told you the word for that yesterday. You remember what it was?
I don't, but you do.
Spoliation.
Spoliation.
Which is part of the history of this town.
Yeah.
And it can
Yes.
it can make it incredibly confusing to
Uh-huh.
figure
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
This is clearly Old Borden Batten, but clearly the floor doesn't line
Right.
up.
Why?
The roof line is different.
It's because this was from more than one house. This house was originally several houses. It would be, yeah.
So
Especially if something doesn't make sense. Sometimes we go to like, I call it read. Sometimes we go to read a building and it's like, I can't make any sense of this.
Yeah.
And then you learn something like that and you go, ah, this is why.
We had one of those before us, the last meeting, the Avalon House, where we actually figured out that they had moved some of the old windows from an
Yeah.
old wall out onto the porch and
Uh-huh.
enclosed the porch.
Yeah, so the porch
Yeah.
windows look old, so maybe the porch is old, but it's not. They
Yeah.
just scooch the windows somewhere else. Yeah, it's amazing. It is the ingenuity of necessity is always so amazing when looking at places like Bisbee. It just gets me. Okay, the next slide is just a little fun. You know, obviously this is not all the houses in Old Bisbee, but this is the ones that are representative of this Bisbee eclectic style. And I listed all the styles on the side that it has elements of, but none of them are that. And it just is this really beautiful, I think it's so beautiful, this agglomeration and sort of sense of creativity and necessity from the residents of Bisbee that. And you could tell that they were aware of some things. Like, oh, these shingles, like they're stylish right now, so I'll put them on this little house that's definitely not Queen Anne. But look at my shingles, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like, yeah, just all these pieces come together in a really awesome way. And people were just doing the best with what they had, and not only that, but people were coming from all over the country. That was another little insight I had. People were coming from all over, and you know, when you migrate from somewhere else, there's always a little piece of you that wants your house to look like your old house. And that's why we have grass lawns in Phoenix, Arizona before the war, you know, so it's a whole thing. But anyway, let's talk about new construction. There should be like a couple pictures on this slide, if you wanna just keep hitting enter. I didn't do the transitions on this one. Okay, so when we think about infill, new construction, we just want it to go. There's a couple ways to look at it, and I'll talk about this in a minute. But really, we want new buildings in historic context to not ruin it, to not stick out.
Yeah.
We want them to be, just like an addition, respectful and subordinate, and just considerate of the historic district. And you know, in a traditional residential subdivision, you can look at something like setbacks, like at the Tower Bluff. Obviously, we don't really have a setback, a uniform setback line somewhere like Bisbee. You know, we want it to be differentiated, but not too much. There's this little line to walk, and there is still a lot of room for creativity when you're looking at infill in a historic district. Property owners don't have to feel like the hammer is being come down on them and they're being forced to live in a house that doesn't look like the way they want it. There's always a compromise.
It's confusing.
It is. I understand. The next slides will make it a little
Because
clearer.
inventing history, but fitting in with the original.
I know.
Compatible but subordinate, I think you
But
said that
I
before,
think a
right?
big part of it is the scale, the
I was
massing.
gonna say
Yes.
scale.
Scale and massing.
When we did the charrette, that was one of the things we focused on, was pointing out that for new construction and that, don't focus on style, focus on scale, massing, void to solid
Size,
ratio, size, shape, things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, you
No.
don't want a
Yeah.
McMansion in
Yeah.
So it's
No.
like size, shape, roof line, window style.
Lot coverage. You know, yeah. I mean, don't build a McMansion in a subdivision with tiny houses.
Yeah.
Don't build a 2-story house in
Next to
a.
a bunch of single story
Exactly. Yeah. It really like people like get so like
Well,
wound up about this.
What about a Warren-style craftsman in the Gulch?
No, that wouldn't go.
That wouldn't go.
Also, don't rebuild a Warren style craftsman anywhere, because that would be a false sense of history. Someone would be like, oh, that's weird. One of like the Fat Cat mining executives lived in the Gulch. Like, No, they didn't, and that would be what that would look
I'm
like.
nodding in agreement.
Yeah, thank you. I get really excited about this. If I need to calm down, just someone tell me to calm down.
What if you moved a Warren bungalow to the Gulch?
Don't do that either. Just don't. But if that was the only way to save it, no, we'll talk. I don't know.
So as far as after all of those things, then we get down to style, siding, windows, doors, all of those things.
Mhm.
So how do we can match the sizes and the roof lines and things like that,
Yeah.
but then how do we still make that look different from the house next door?
Yeah, I mean, the
You know.
goal is for siding, windows, and you know, features, the architectural features. The goal is, in my mind, and you know, this is, take what I'm about to say with like my little subjective grain of salt, because I'm a historic preservationist and no two of us are the same. But for me, the goal is to make those materials as quality as possible. Just don't make it look like trash. And sometimes that's all we, at the municipal level, that's all we can hope for, is just quality.
So I'm hearing like to get the new home through, it sounds like it's just gonna be some negotiation.
Always,
It's gonna be a
always.
submittal, it's gonna be some comments,
Mhm.
revisions, maybe
Yeah.
more, and hopefully in
Always.
6 to 9 months, you
Mhm.
got approval.
That is always the name of the game, is it's historic preservation is always a compromise. There is not one historic preservation project that I have ever known or worked on that was not the product of some kind of compromise. And that's how it is. And sometimes no one's happy, sometimes everyone's happy.
And I think you have a lot more latitude in construction because it should be.
By far and wide, yeah.
It should be of its own era.
Yes.
So that means, hey, if you always wanted those long horizontal windows that are up high,
Yeah,
glass block wall, you know.
totally.
So that's where you
Black
get.
siding with embossed wood look on it.
You know, we'll talk about it.
I will use that, just so you all know.
If that's Tyler Bradbury's
I will
signature
use
sauce.
it on the houses that exist on it.
Yeah.
But, and that's where I'm kind of like, you know, it seems like they want the new construction to be obviously new construction.
Mhm.
But it's hard to do that in
It
Old
is.
Bisbee because we've got to come to the design review board.
Yeah.
So when we come to design review board, boom, we open the book, look at the guidelines.
Right.
Or we don't look at the guidelines.
Or we
and
don't,
just get an
because-
argument, you know, but.
Yeah.
So that's where it's kind of,
Yeah.
for me, it's like you want it to look old, but you don't want it to look old.
You don't want it to look old, but you want it to fit in with the other old houses.
That-
Yeah.
About 8 years ago, we had a house that was rebuilt that had been burned down maybe 68 years prior.
Uh-huh.
And they used the photographs and they rebuilt it to match what it was. Was that a mistake?
You know, this is just me.
That's a good question.
I love that.
I would love that too.
I love it.
They did it accurately, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a restoration or a reconstruction.
It's a reconstruction, it's actually a
These old
preservation
houses of
technique.
prostitution is what it was.
Oh,
Sure.
And
They-
then they rebuilt it and it turned out beautiful. And I really liked what they did.
And now it tells a story, right? It furthers the narrative of that neighborhood, of that block, of that building, of Bisbee. Some people would say no, I love it. If
Yeah,
someone does it
It
right.
gets confusing because we've had a few instances, mostly in Tucson, in like the barrio, where in the 80s in particular, they were building brand new adobe houses.
I have
You've
the
got one
example
that
in
blends in very
Yeah.
well with the
You
surrounding
just gave it
neighborhood.
away.
Sorry.
My punchline.
But you know, the little plaques out, if it's a little, little historic plaque that's, just tells you a little bit of what this, this burned down in, 1943.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah,
and,
so I like
you know,
that.
You're a chair, ladies and gentlemen. That's exactly what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Is you do interpretation, right? You tell the whole story of the building, not just, this was a brothel in 1890 whatever. This was a brothel, it burned down. Someone loved it, wanted to restore it. That's the whole story on it.
And actually, people love stories, so,
And people love plaques.
Yeah, and they love plaques, they read the plaques.
Yeah.
And they love them all even more when it has to do with history.
Mhm.
So how is that not a falsification of history?
Legitimate question.
Yeah.
But because that exact same building used to be there. And I will be honest, I would approve that reconstruction on the condition that there is a little plaque somewhere that says
That tells you,
rebuilt,
that tells you, yeah.
It's also-
1997.
Yeah, maybe an original photo
Yeah.
of the structure
Exactly.
before it burns.
It's also extremely rare for anybody to
Yeah.
actually do that.
No, that
I mean,
doesn't happen.
this one is like added to a handful that I'm
Well, we
aware
got
of.
three on Main Street that are.
Oh, well.
I mean,
Yeah.
Two.
Yeah.
There's two.
Two.
Okay,
It's
everybody.
more common sense.
Yeah.
All right, before we move on, I have to change the battery out.
oh god,
Okay.
that's all.
Alright,
I'm
we're
not
good.
talking
Okay.
about- Yeah, you know, I think a lot of people in the public don't understand that
No.
point, because they're like, well, why did you say yes to this, but you said no to me?
Yeah,
You know, and it's because every situation is unique, you know? So we have to make a decision.
you do.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you have a super contentious case, I will come down and I will stand at that podium and I will explain it to everyone in this room. I will
You
do
know we've never had a
Awesome.
super contentious
No, I
case.
can't imagine that you would, but in the event that this entire room is packed and everyone's angry,
Yeah,
like, I'd be happy to come and explain this. You know, whether they wanna like listen to some girl from Phoenix is up to them, but,
the chocolate shop, yeah.
So I wanted to ask you,
yeah,
a lot of times there's extra expense
Mhm.
involved in maintaining
there is.
historic style or whatever, and some people can't afford it, so they don't do anything.
Mhm.
Are there any cities that provide subsidies or grants for people to maintain historic relevance?
Yeah, Phoenix does. It's the only one.
Florence
Florence
does, just started it a couple of years
Yeah.
ago. Douglas was talking about it.
But that was commercial facades.
That was commercial facades
Yeah.
only. Tucson did a commercial program for a while too. But yeah, for homeowners, Phoenix and more recently Florence were the only two that have done it.
But you have the tax, if you're contributing, you've got the
Yeah.
tax.
You have-
Yeah,
You have a tax.
the idea behind the tax program was just for that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Since it can be more costly to maintain historic homes, the reduction in property taxes
Yeah.
is supposed to be used for
That's the
maintenance.
incentive.
And
Yeah.
as a little aside tangent, my personal preservation philosophy is that no one should be miserable in their house because it's historic. No one should hate the fact that they have to live in a historic house. And that being said, I do this a lot with roofs, especially with wood shingle, wood shake roofs. Those are often considered character defining features of a property. It's a roof, so it's considered sacrificial, which is like a little bit of a tenet of how we think about preservation, but property owners will come to me and say, my roof is falling apart, and I got a quote for a new roof for my 1,200 square foot home, and for a new wood shingle roof, it's $68,000. And I said, that's insane. Go get another quote and package them up, send them to me, and you're fine to replace it with asphalt shingles. Like economic, you know, we don't have to always call it hardship with a capital H, but like economic considerations are always or very often part of it. Very, very rarely you get a rich person that can just dump all the money into doing this, right?
Yeah.
So it's another part of the balance of this compromise balancing act. But yeah, you're not wrong. Sometimes it's just, and also, you're right about them doing nothing. And the worst thing that we can have a property happen is fall into disrepair.
Yeah.
So if, and it truly means, and this might be a little controversial, but if it truly means that we're gonna lose a building, or the siding gets replaced with T111 instead of board and batten, I would rather see the T111 siding. That can start dangerous precedents, and it can, you know, roll into something bigger, but if we're looking at it on a case-by-case basis, that would be my answer, because someday the T111 could come off, and we could put the board and batten back on, in a new property owner, or a new
Or it goes
situation.
over.
Or it goes
Like-
over.
Like the example I gave
Yeah.
where you're not ruining or
Mhm.
removing something historic, you put something over, like a storm window over a leaky
Yes,
historic
we
window.
love a storm window over a storm window, yeah. And honestly, on preservation projects I've done, actually take a Sharpie and write on the building what is happening, what year it was, like original siding here, right? New siding replaced 2017. just because, you know, the records might get lost, City Hall might burn down, God forbid, you know? So it's, it's not the only place that this has happened. It happens to a lot of places. But, you know, it's fun stuff like that. So yeah, you know, this is gonna look different in Bisbee than it will in other places. And it's always gonna be this case-by-case basis. But the same principles apply, right? We always want it to be respectful, subordinate, and complementary in things like size, scale, massing, shape, setback, roof shape, just like you said. Okay, and I have, this is a little, something that I came up with, is this 3-tier idea, right? And I think about 3 ways to build new and historic district. The first one is to make an exact replica. It's a way. We don't see it often, and we don't usually love it, but it's one of the options that can happen. The second one is to go full contemporaries, to go with your banded clerestory windows with glass block. And the third way is kind of somewhere in the middle. It might have a very similar shape to a Craftsman house, but you can tell that it's not, right? It has a projecting carport in front, obviously, that would not have been a feature of a Craftsman home. So we love to see 2 and 3, and you know, deciding how contemporary you want to go with your new construction is always going to be a conversation with design review and with the owner. So here's a couple examples. Don't freak out, but this is in the Coronado Historic District of Phoenix. You know, especially the one on the left, he called it modern cottage, right? It's very similar to the building types and shapes that exist in that neighborhood. But you see the width of the siding and the gables is obviously not historic. Things like that. And yeah, the one on the left, like it has a flat roof. It's kind of dramatic, but it follows the setbacks, and it's small, and it's not it doesn't it doesn't overpower anything else, and it's eye catching, which is always the thing. My other key like asterisk for new construction in historic districts is architectural value. Does something have high architectural value, or even medium amount of architectural value? Is it thoughtful? Was an architect even involved in designing it? Is it, has it been, really it's thoughtful. It's just thoughtfulness. Yeah.
Does it matter if an architect's involved in designing it or not?
I mean,
what if a homeowner comes to me and says, hey, I got these plans that I drew up last year, and they look great?
Sure. I mean, yeah, if they don't need stamps to get their building permits, then if they look great, they look great. I'm not gonna, judge anyone for that.
Well, and the other thing is too, is I deal with a lot of people that cannot afford
of course.
Both.
Of course, of course.
We can either do construction or we can get plans.
Yeah, yep. And that's another thing that I do, is I work with architects and property owners, or just property owners that want to do the right thing, but they can't hire an architect. And so I say, let me help you design something. Let's talk about it.
Well, Arizona has certified designers, right? Step down from the architect.
Architectural, if Arizona has a cert for architectural designer, no, I don't think so.
Well,
they've got
that was
draftsmen who will do stuff.
Brian Opus.
He's a drafter.
Yeah,
But
I don't know if he's certified.
There's no certification, but
Some
he
people
knows
are
what he's
talented,
doing.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And, he can design.
He does very good plans, I
Well, he
think.
does.
He got
Well,
some
I
kind of
can-
certification lately.
Okay.
Yeah, he did get some
But
sort of
it's
certification.
not, anything I've heard of before.
So the next one is kind of sort of this in the middle. These are in different districts. The one on the left is a 1 3/4-ish story house, but that upper story is set back. There are other 2-story houses in this district. The metal roof is kind of cool, good shape, and the one on the right is, Craftsman inspired, but clearly new. These are some bad examples. Don't do this. Don't, especially the one on the bottom right. It just is funny. Like it just makes me laugh. And the one on the top is actually new construction. And there's two. This is what it looked like when it was built, and then this other iteration of it, I would argue, is not better. But you can tell, like, sure, it's kind of early craftsmanship, but the proportions are all wrong. Look at that back volume, like,
Yeah.
why is that expanse there? You know,
Yeah.
the depth, the height of those gables is just, it's all wrong. It doesn't feel right, feeling. It doesn't feel good. You're like, ugh.
Hurts my
Yeah,
brain.
Yes, yeah, yes.
There's a house that
Yeah.
looks a lot like that when you're driving out of Bisbee past the
Yeah.
tunnel.
Oh, God.
Up on the hill.
Copper
That-
house or something.
The one in Medlock Place is, like, one of the characteristics of the district is small houses on large lots, and then that came in.
Yeah. This was done before the district, so obviously it's just
Yeah.
like non-contributor, but we would not have allowed this to go into the district if it was up to us.
I think another good example is the one they did at top Tucson Canyon.
Oh.
That new one.
Oh, the craftsman-y, like, next to the green.
Yeah, it's got the
vernacular
gable, and
house.
then they did the fancy stuff in the gable,
Yeah,
and they used, you know, to me, it fits in really well. with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
area. At first, when they were building it, I was like, what the hell are they doing? But
Mhm.
now, I'm like, oh, that's really nice.
I would love to get an idea of some of the new constructions that you guys have done in
That's the
the
newest
historic
one.
district.
Yeah, that's the
'cause-
newest one, it's at the top.
Yeah.
Just before you turn up onto 80,
Very
on the
cool.
right-hand side, sits down.
We're gonna let you find it.
Ooh, how fun. He never lets me drive around the hills over here with him.
You'll never get
Yeah.
home.
He's like, the road's not
Well,
gonna
that's
fit.
part of it, and part of it is like, I've driven up on those roads, and in the vehicles we have, we need a tiny little Prius to get around up there easily.
Oh, yeah.
I take my full-size truck.
Yeah,
up.
exactly.
I know.
I think that's
We're
true.
used to it.
So,
That's true. I can do it. I'm a good driver.
up High Road, right, High Street, just.
High
like there.
Road, Timmy, all of them.
Yeah, that road's a fun one.
There ain't one
It
of
is,
them I
but
haven't had
Thank
my
you.
truck on.
Thank
I've had my truck to the top of Castle Rock.
Oh, wow,
So-
very nice. Yeah.
Just saying, that's the tightest road in town.
Appreciate it.
I think it's 60.
Frank and I both live near that new house you're just talking about.
PS fits
It's the
on-
casita.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, we can talk about ADs.
It's an
There's so
accessory, it's
much.
an accessory dwelling. Not really a house.
It is.
I don't
but
wait. Like
It
I
looks
don't
almost
even.
bigger than the main house.
I will come back and we can do a whole conversation about just ADUs. You guys, seriously. Okay, this we can skip this one. It's interesting, but we don't have time for it. So this is the next blue slide.
Blue?
Yeah.
Blue. None of these ones. Keep on going.
Keep going. This one, yeah.
Wow.
So this is what Eric was talking about. This is brand new construction, brand new Adobe construction in one of the barrios in Tucson,
Yeah,
and you can't tell.
yeah.
But it's
And
real Adobe,
it's
not.
real Adobe. It's the posts are wood. It's a corrugated
That's
metal
nice.
roof. They, you know,
Yeah,
I can't knock them for doing this. I really can't.
it is a cool looking house.
It's a cool looking house. It's
Yeah.
right at the it's
So
right
the
at the
structural
edge.
components are real Adobe? How did you get the ASTM certs on the bricks and,
It's in the code.
is it?
Yeah, Adobe's in the
We're getting ready
international
to
code.
do an Adobe.
Oh, okay.
That's really cool. I need to brush up on ASTM and preservation stuff for sure.
Yeah, you just
We wanna
have to
get
have a
that.
thicker wall.
Okay.
Yeah.
This one's got some real good stuff. They'll get there.
Yeah. So, and this was done in the 80s, right?
I believe it, yeah, it was the
Okay.
80s. And this one was also, they applied for the tax program because they didn't realize their house was not historic.
Yeah, they
because
didn't know.
Because the original owners had moved on and somebody else had moved in, and somebody else, and soon the
Oh.
real estate person thinks it's a historic property because it's Adobe like
Right.
everything else in the barrio.
Yeah.
And that's one of the
That's the
downsides,
false
is when you're
history
breaking
there.
it to a homeowner going, no, your house was only built in the 80s. It would have built,
Excuse me?
you know, ideally 100 years before that
Right.
in order to be historic.
Come back in a little while.
Yeah, come,
Yeah.
right,
It was
exactly.
the wrong 80s, we need the
That's the
80s.
wrong 80s. That's good.
But it's not the homeowner's fault, they didn't realize what they were getting, they were
Yeah.
kind of misled on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next slide, I just did a little breakdown when I was kind of studying the code and then the design guidelines for Bisbee. And sometimes, you know, we all know this in our brains, but sometimes this gets really messy in terms of what
This is a helpful slide.
good.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is such a good compliment. Thank you, I appreciate it. Because, you know, property owners or neighbors can come up here and say, what about my parking requirements? And it's like, well, that's not the purview of the DRB. That's
Yeah.
up to planning and zoning. That's up to
Yeah.
building review.
Does that count for our bridges as well?
Yeah, yes. Exactly. But DRB is about making that compromise with property owners about changes or new buildings in terms of style, siding, materials, architectural features, you know, lighting, all these things. Like, lighting might be a little bit of a two-way, but it is because there's so much emotion involved in this, these lines can get really blurry sometimes, and it can be hard to sort of find your way back to them. So that's just why I wanted to put this up there. Yeah, okay, so now let's talk about materials. And, let me give you, can you pass these out for me? Thank you. This is the everyone can have one, I think I printed out enough. This is the brand new guidance from the National Park Service about substitute materials.
Thank you.
And since the dawn of preservation,
Thank you.
NPS, the arbiters of the field, have always just demanded replacement in kind. If it's wood, you replace it with wood. We don't want to have a conversation. We don't care what you think. Oh no! Oh, is there an extra
There's
one?
an extra one right here.
Oh, there is. Okay.
Yes, I nailed it.
You did it perfectly.
You know, I don't care if this fire escape is cast iron, and the reason it's failing is because it's cast iron. You rebuild it in cast iron, and it's like that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. And so finally, after a lot of strife, I feel, and I'm pretty sure, they came out with this new guidance last year, and it has really embraced not only practicality of substitute materials, but like we were talking about, the changing world that we live in, and how, you know, some replacing redwood old growth windows with redwood old growth windows is not sustainable. We're not going to start cutting down more old growth redwoods just so homeowners can have their historic homes, right? Let's maybe think about another material that these windows can be made out of. Or, you know, some materials are just more environmentally friendly in terms of the way they're produced, or that they're going to last longer. They're going to reduce waste in other ways. They are going to better weather the changing climate that we have. A lot of this can be adapted to sea level rises. A lot of homes that are on coastlines have to make pretty significant changes of themselves to keep them from falling into the ocean. So there's a lot of really interesting information. I kind of distilled it here. These little two pictures on the bottom was an interesting bit that I had never thought about in the intro to this brief, and that is that substitute building materials are not a new idea, right? So these are both Bisbee examples I found. Something like cast stone was a substitute building material for quarried ashlar masonry. And someone figured out, we can make it out of concrete. It's cheaper, it's gonna last longer, and we can mass produce it, and more people can have homes.
Oh, we got tons of cast,
Exactly.
concrete precast that look like blocks.
Yeah, and you know, unless, you know, we know to look for
close
the patterns, right?
You know? Oh yeah, this is cast concrete.
But your average Bisbee visitor is not going to know that. They're going to be, oh god, look at this masonry. There's the quarries everywhere, you know, that kind of stuff. So, and you know, especially at Preston Cornice. I remember the first time I saw one of these, I thought it was masonry, I thought it was terracotta, and it wasn't, and I just lost my mind. Like, I was literally up on a building and it was crazy. So, the idea of using substitute materials to look like a different material is an old practice. So, we're not inventing it to begin with here. So here's another little chart that I kind of came up with, and this is from the preservation brief. There isn't anything that is up here that's not in there. So yeah, we think about historic materials not being available. They don't make asbestos shingles anymore. You know, we can't get turn-plated steel anymore. It doesn't make sense. Things like fire and life safety. Sometimes historic materials, they don't meet code anymore. And that's okay, and we just have to figure out another way. When we're thinking about wildfires, that's a whole other conversation, of course, and that's a cloud. I don't need to tell you this. Like, everyone walks around Bisbee thinking about it, and every property owner thinks about it every day. They look up in the hills, so it's like, where's this compromise? This is another really sort of unique Bisbee compromise that always has to kind of be in the back of our heads. So, maybe the original material wasn't great to begin with. Very soft brick is not awesome to rebuild with, even if the original building is brick. We can't find someone to craft a new double hung window out of wood, or if we can, it's too expensive. Or, and this is one of my favorite ones, it's a secondary feature. So this is one of my favorite compromises with property owners. I will bargain with them and say, okay, I'll entertain your window replacement if you keep your 2 original windows on the front facade. And you can put in whatever you want on the sides and the back. Yeah?
Well, that actually has come up.
Yeah.
The backside, yeah, that was the backside of the house.
Mm-hmm. So, and oftentimes I get that's great, that'll save me money. And, you know, I help them figure out how to weather strip and seal up their steel casement windows that are leaking, right? So, you know, the secondary features is one of those compromising points that I like to go to right away. Yeah, all kinds of stuff to think about. So here's the guidelines from NPS. This is literally a matrix from them. This is in the document as well. But they actually talk about which substitute materials are good substitutes for wood siding, wood molding, you know, slate roofs and things like that. The example I like with the pictures is sandstone. And we know that sandstone is famously irreparable, right? Once it starts flaking, there's nothing you can do. It just is gonna go. And so recasting a new sandstone block this is actually the bottom one's concrete. When you look up close, you can see little aggregates, but on the whole, they did a good job of matching the color, and it's okay. It's just okay. So now I wanted to look at some of these Bisbee matrices and get an idea. I studied these a lot because I wanted to get a good idea of what's going on here in Bisbee right now, what are the conversations happening. And I would just encourage you guys to take a look at these and weigh them against the new federal recommendations, because there's a lot in here that I think, and this is just me, is a little bit too strict.
I agree.
And, you know, I have seen very successful metal clad wood windows that look exactly like wood windows. They function exactly like wood windows. I've even seen amazing aluminum windows that you know, you can extrude them onto profile just the same. It should be. If it's not, I'll just tell you. Oh, these matrices. These I got from Emmanuel. So he would be the one to say that.
Those are.
Well, they haven't been approved yet. Okay, so we're just discussing these right now.
We're discussing.
Okay, so we're
discussing.
We're just working. This is in progress.
I think this could be simplified.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And you know, I would really think about, instead of are we replicating the material, shooting for quality, right? An aluminum window that looks like the double hung wood one is gonna last longer than some double hung wood made out of new growth pine. It just is, especially in the sun, right? So when you're looking at, especially the windows guidelines here, I would definitely disallow vinyl if you can get away with it. But even, and this is crazy, coming from a municipality like Mesa, where the people were very not okay with me telling them what to do, I would even let them put their applied muntins on their windows, like make them demand. I know it's not great, but we have to take the wins where we can. Not the Scotch tape ones. No. You guys know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
The ones that are
the ones that had dimension. I know. That would have been my phase 2 before I started working at a city. But sometimes, like, you just have to take the wins where you can get them, and sometimes you just have to take the losses, and it sucks, but it's true.
And for us, we would need to hire someone full-time to argue with people who want to replace their windows.
Yeah, I try, but I have too many things to do.
Is that the kind of deal where the homeowner comes to me and says, well, the vinyl windows are gonna cost me $10,000, but these other windows are gonna cost me $30,000, and I tell them, well, you need to fork out the money or deal with a leaky house?
I mean, you either...
that's where the contractors are kind of
Yeah.
stuck in the middle. These people are coming to the board
Right.
once or twice.
Right.
The contractor's gotta deal with them the entire
I
time.
know, it is, oof, I don't envy those contractors, obviously. But I think there is something in the middle, right? Like, there are, okay, do your cheap vinyl windows on the back and the sides, and spend the money on the front windows, or,
Right, but this is one of those things
Yeah.
where if these guys are trying to make decisions about what they are and are not
I
gonna
know.
allow right now,
Yeah.
this needs to come up.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's gonna come up, and if you come in and you say, vinyl windows are not allowed in the historic district.
right,
Now I've gotta go to my homeowner and say,
Yeah.
if you don't have $50,000 for
I know.
windows, you're SOL and you
Yeah.
gotta deal with what you got.
and that is a kind of situation where, number one, I always like to really understand what the property owner is going through, right? If they have come to me and they love their house, they inherited it from their grandmother, they spent their entire life savings to live in the historic district in Bisbee, and they are struggling with their heating bills or whatever, I am so much more likely, and they come to me and say, what can I do? I'm so much more likely to let them put applied dimensional muntins on their windows than I would be if someone just didn't care and did it, and then said, I'll ask for forgiveness
I
later.
mean, for the most case, this wouldn't happen, but
Yeah,
it's gonna happen.
it always is, and
And I just wanna know where I need to be when that
Yeah.
situation
Yeah.
arises.
you can
So-
call me,
'cause,
just call me,
you know.
yeah,
I moved here from Pasadena. And
Okay.
in Pasadena,
yeah,
the rule was, it was the easement that was really important. It's what can you see from the street?
yes, that's.
Because they did have to make exceptions for people, you know, for many reasons.
Mhm.
Some of them are economic, but others are just, you know, this is the modern world. And you know,
Yeah.
you gotta use materials that are
Yeah,
gonna be more,
I need an
you
extra
know.
door to my patio, you know,
Yeah.
on the back.
Right, so stuff like that.
So that
So,
makes
I
sense.
yeah, I feel like if you can see it,
Mhm.
that's different than the back
Yes.
that's not visible. I mean, a lot of times you're right up against a mountain or whatever, nobody's gonna see it but you.
Right,
And-
and in that case,
Yeah.
I always tell the homeowners, it doesn't matter if you can see it or not, you still have to follow the guidelines.
But
Yeah.
there's other options too, and the recent one that I'd like to bring up is the Werner Hotel, which the owner had a huge $1 million project, but not a $1 million budget.
Yeah.
Was considering replacing the windows and couldn't afford it, and it actually turned out to be cheaper to leave the old windows there and redo the weather stripping, the caulking.
Yeah. Right.
And yes, they don't operate great and they're still single pane,
Yeah,
but
They're
still-
authentic.
they're-
yeah,
You save money and the old historic windows are still there.
yeah, and the building doesn't leak as much.
Well, and in
anymore.
that case, it was cheaper for him, but in my case, I had the same situation on Garden Avenue where we were required to restore the windows, and it ended up costing about triple.
Sure,
Right.
yeah,
So,
no, I know, it's,
Well, it seems to me we need to help people through education when they come from Phoenix, like I did.
yeah,
And you buy a house and all of
Yeah.
a sudden I find out I can't do half the shit I wanted.
yeah,
So
yeah, for
then
sure.
everybody's mad,
Yeah.
right?
And you know, maybe that compromises, you can do a quarter of the shit that you wanted. And, the other half of that shit, we figure out how to do it in a little bit of a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
A lot of times, excuse me, I'm sorry, a lot of times when people come to the DRB, it's too late.
yes,
They need
Yeah.
to know ahead of
Exactly.
time what they
Well,
can
the
do.
realtor, you know, should have some
Yeah,
responsibility.
exactly what I was
it
gonna
is,
say.
it should be up to the real, I didn't
We
mean to
made
point, I'm so
some
sorry.
folders, some information folders a while ago.
Yeah.
And passed those out to the realtors. I don't know if they still, if we still have any of those.
We do, and we give them out to all new homeowners.
Yeah.
Wow.
And also, when I get
It's
a
amazing.
records request from a real estate agent about what's been done to the property or whatever, I always give them a copy of that pamphlet, our design standards, and explain to them that anything you do to the exterior of the home has to come through the design review board.
Whoa,
Mhm.
So we
superstar.
try to make sure that we get everybody.
And something like that is possible in a community like Bisbee,
Yeah.
And
which is really cool.
how I've been deciding for my personal votes on the board, if the windows that they're replacing were 1970s aluminum
Yeah.
sliders, I don't care.
Mm-hmm,
I don't
Yep.
care what you replace it with. And so that in that case, those people just save money. But
mm-hmm.
if they're, you know, double hungs with diamonds in them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
and
Jim's
stuff.
Love
Defining
Suites.
feature of that.
It's a
Yeah.
defining feature,
Exactly.
and I'm gonna rule a little bit more strict on that case.
Yes, that's
Absolutely.
absolutely right. That's how we do it.
So question for you, because that's come up with me and homeowners, is we go in, you have these windows, aluminum sliders. But there were some homes that when they went on the register, they had those.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
in the case
I
that the
know.
home had an aluminum slider, they want to replace it,
Mm-hmm.
do we replace it with an aluminum slider?
Nah, replace it with whatever you
You
want.
don't have a right of like to like.
Okay. Well, because there's some homes
Yeah.
that I've come across that, and
Right.
I'm like, well, if I replace that with two double hungs that are molded together, it's gonna look like shit.
It's gonna look
But if I
shit.
put an aluminum slider back in there, it's gonna look great.
Sure, you put a new aluminum slider, put in just a big single pane fixed window if that's what
And
you want.
that I've suggested.
That looks, I don't hate that because it looks clean
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
is clearly not historic.
Right.
It is, so it's, it adds to this,
So that kind of comes back down to the feeling part of it.
And I think homeowners like it because it's a beautiful,
you get your due, yeah.
yeah.
It's feeling, but this is actually a pretty cut and dried rule. Like if your windows are currently not historic, you can replace them with whatever you want, just like that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And if you ever have any questions, I'll give you my cell phone number. You can call me or text me anytime, and I'll just be like, yes, you're right.
I usually just go to Nina.
Or yeah, it's nice to meet you. It's so good to meet you. I didn't put that together.
And after her, it's been.
There you go.
So how many years is considered historic? What era?
Well, each of both the commercial district and Bisbee residential have specific periods of significance, which is a National Register term. That- Yeah, and I'm trying to think what it was. The commercial district was listed in 1980, so I'm guessing it goes from basically the founding of Bisbee to 1930.
Mhm.
I
And
think that's
then,
what the residential is also.
is the residential up to 1930? That could be, yeah.
I think so.
To answer your question, it's 50 years. We generally say
Well,
50
there's
years.
two ways, but 50 years is when stuff might be considered historic, but if it's in the district, then it's connected to that period of significance.
Right, exactly.
So,
For example, in Palm Springs, mid-centuries are the biggest architectural,
Yes.
Yeah.
representation in that city, right? So.
We're listing multifamily condos from the 70s now.
which is frightening, but
Wow.
still.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone always says the joke, well, if
The
that's the case,
70s
I'm
were so
historic.
cool.
Yeah. I have one more window little thing to make. Do you have internet in here?
Yep.
Can I ask you to Google Indows? INDOWS.
Yeah, hold on a second.
Mhm.
IND.
Do you know about Indows, Ben?
They're storm windows, right?
Sort of.
Okay.
Sort of.
Yeah, I mean, there's been attempts to rebrand storm window type stuff into something that isn't called storm windows.
Yeah.
Because people have the wrong impression
Yeah.
of what they are then.
Okay.
But these are window inserts that go on the inside of your windows.
Oh.
And
I've seen those.
have you?
Yeah.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
They're amazing. I'm
And
obsessed
tight
with
as
them.
can be.
They're as tight as can be, and you measure your
The
window
mouse
openings.
is still on the screen. If you're looking for the mouse.
Yes.
You
This thing's very slow.
you measure your window openings.
Thank you.
The staff is extremely helpful. You send it to them. They will manufacture these window inserts for you. And the way that it works is they're a little springy on each side. And so you just kind of like squish them into your window openings, and they're good for heat, for cooling, for noise, for UV. You can get UV ones that will block out light,
Do you have
and they are removable. It literally you just go like this.
Do you have
can open your
And they're on
window.
the inside.
a
They're on
brand?
the inside.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and maybe we could add them to our matrix as,
Yeah,
just so people
windows.
can see
Mhm.
storm windows / Indows.
Yeah.
Right.
I will die on the hill of Indos. It's an amazing company. They're wonderful,
Windows. Windows.
and
And there's others that do it too, not just
Oh,
windows.
and you can probably make something too,
yeah,
from scratch.
How do you spell it? I mean, like, is there a brand name?
it's
IN.
INDOWS.
Uh-huh.
Windows
Windows
without
without.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But is there like a brand name?
That is the brand name is Indo.
Is there like an insert?
No W, no W.
I
Like
know.
that always.
Yeah, well, it's windows,
That's
window.
weird. Okay,
in
this
my
is like,
stuff.
are you out there like asking you to shop for them?
I went to images.
Oh,
Image
no,
search.
not images.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just regular search.
Did you mean Windows? No.
No. I don't know.
Maybe Indo's.
This goes into that, sorry I asked. Yeah, right.
But now everyone knows about Indos.
Yeah,
And,
that's
yeah, you can just, they have cool videos and, it's very user friendly. They're easy to store in the winter or whatever. And they're way cheaper than replacing your windows. Way cheaper.
No, this isn't
Yeah.
using
So
Boolean
it's like an
search.
alternative for them to say on roofs.
Yeah. Yeah. Or my house is leaking too much. My first is, everyone knows that historic homes were not meant to be airtight. This is,
Well, and that's why I've gotten into that, me and Joe got into that
yeah.
on the Garden Avenue.
Yeah, it's-
People
I
don't
had to
like
restore
it.
all the windows, and
Right.
he came in and told me that my door didn't meet the energy code. I
Yeah.
said, oh, bullshit.
So anyway,
So
yeah.
not after that window restoration. I'm not talking about that.
My doors.
Tyler holds too much in.
I am so glad that you guys are here though, because building code enforcement, anytime I go to a city, I'm like, you guys need, the people that have the eyes and the boots in the field, that they know the property owners, they're out there talking with them, they know the whole story of every single building,
Yeah.
they have the good relationships.
Right.
Well, sometimes I'm the one breaking the news.
It's
You gotta go
true.
to
And that's
DRB.
Yeah.
100%.
But because you guys know what historic preservation is, you know what to look for. You live in Bisbee, so obviously you have to, but in other cities, whatever code enforcement guy is assigned to the areas with the historic districts, I always try to at least sit down with them for a little bit and be like, hey, these are the giant flags. If you see someone stuccoing their house, tell them to stop. If you see someone demoing their house, tell them to stop. So it's the fact that like city staff from all parts of building and planning is here is a really, really big deal. So you guys are the best.
And we're not as scary as people think, like, people
No.
are afraid to come and present their case to us.
Yeah.
And I have neighbors who
I
have gone
run
up to
into
me and
that
said,
a lot.
Lori, you have to, and I'm like, it's fine, just.
It's gonna be
not that
okay.
scary.
When
It's not that scary.
whenever someone calls me, my first thing is like, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah,
Carmen and I
yeah.
are freaking out about something. It's gonna be fine. I promise you, it's
Probably borrow
gonna
that
be okay. Yeah, please do. It's gonna be
His new slogan.
okay. Yeah. It's
Trust me,
not.
I'm a contractor.
Bisbee, yeah, Bisbee Historic Design Review Board, it's gonna
It's
be
gonna be
okay.
okay.
That's our tagline.
So, we can think about this in terms of siding types. My one note for the siding type matrix is, just make sure that there's an asterisk somewhere that says these are not interchangeable. Like, if the original siding is stucco, don't change it to brick. That kind of thing. But yeah, what we kind of talked about in terms of substituting materials can be thought about for siding, and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, these are my closing thoughts. It is very possible to still utilize substitute materials and have it be okay, have the integrity still be there. I talk a lot about the intention of the property owner. Barriers to historic preservation can kill a project and can kill a building.
Oh, absolutely.
And yeah, so we never want that to happen, right? And you guys see it firsthand all the time.
Yeah.
And so we weigh the cost. If we can't let these replacements happen, the alternative could be so much worse. And ultimately, the goal of historic preservation is to prevent losing buildings.
Yeah.
So that's all I've got, you guys.
So,
Yeah.
recent one that came in front of us, she had shiplap on her house, which is the original house had shiplap, and then she had an addition that had shiplap, and she wanted to make it stucco. And we're like, well, that's fine, because it's an addition.
Yeah.
So it's standing out from the rest of the house is actually a good thing.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah, but she was so terrified to come in front of us
Oh.
with this, because she thought we were gonna make her do something really expensive, and she's like, so expensive to get the real wood shiplap made, you know, and,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I
Well-
kinda said, it'll be okay, just, you know, we're
Yeah.
not monsters,
Yeah.
we're gonna
Right, we're not.
figure this out.
So what if you've got like a teardrop siding and they wanna go to a shiplap, is that okay?
I mean.
I mean, is wood siding wood siding? Because like with your instance, the shiplap,
Yeah.
shiplap is available at the shelf on home, at home.
Right.
Well, that's
Now,
actually,
teardrop siding,
profile.
yours,
Yeah.
You gotta mill it.
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I
mean-
had to do on the last job.
The coolest idea would be like, oh, someone else is getting rid of their teardrop lap siding, let me
And
reuse
that's
it
what we
online.
try to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course,
We
of
always in
course.
Boston
Yeah, yeah.
for guys that are demoing, so that way we can say, well, if you're not saving that, let me have it.
You guys are preservation superstars. No other city is doing that, I swear to God. So like, yes, you're
Well, I
exactly
went and
right.
bought the teardrop machine just
Oh my
to.
God. Your ROI might be
Dead
good.
serious.
that's awesome,
Yeah.
that's
Dead
awesome.
serious.
Yeah.
I went and bought the machine and milled it all up
Yeah.
because I couldn't get it.
Mhm. I mean, my
Now we know.
compromise
Now
in
we
that
know.
situation would
Don't
be.
tell everybody.
Well, we're gonna tell everybody.
I mean,
Greg's like, "Can I borrow that?"
my compromise in that situation would be, okay, maybe the teardrop is too expensive, but instead of a full shiplap, maybe get regular lap siding that has the same dimension as the teardrop, right?
And
So-
that's what I had thought
Yeah.
about doing in that
Yeah.
case, but I couldn't find anything that was that small.
Yeah,
I think what you said is mentioned in there in the briefs, in that, that you guys have given us.
perfect. Yeah.
Can we get an electronic copy of your presentation?
Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
that's just required.
Yes.
Yeah, if you send it to Emmanuel and myself, I'll make sure they get it out, and the ones that couldn't
Just
attend,
the
I'll make sure they
PowerPoint.
Yeah,
get
if we
it.
can pass
PowerPoint.
it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then you're gonna scan.
And you are also absolutely right. It is about education. It's about education of property owners. And the goal also is eventually for the word to spread that going to DRB is not scary.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be okay, right? And that can take generations to really diffuse into the whole community. So it's an uphill battle.
Yeah, because really, if you look at our record, we're not turning,
Yeah.
I mean, last year, what, we had 2 that did not get approved.
Mhm.
And then we had others that got approved with contingencies, right?
Right.
So, I mean, that's not a scary record.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
Not at all. Not at all. You guys are doing an excellent job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the ultimate message I want to convey. Just the fact that you called me and are like, "Hey, we want to learn more about this," puts you ahead of so many other commissions out there. So
Thank you so much. This was really entertaining
great.
and informative.
That wasn't boring.
It was great. Yeah, really good.
Oh, thank you.
And
Thanks
thank
for
you guys for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks for having it.
Yeah.
I wanna
Cleared up a lot of
say,
things.
I wanna say that as things change throughout the design review board, you guys are starting to make newer decisions of what is and isn't allowed, or whatever the case may be. You know, if there can be public work sessions or even things like this that we're invited to, because us contractors are the guys on the street making people aware, or more aware of what this
Yes.
whole design review board is about.
Yes.
So as things within the city get changed, if there can, I don't know if a meeting is necessary like this, but, you know, if we're made more aware of it, we can put the word out more, you know, because it's like with the realtors, how many of them are passing that on? I hope they're all passing it on, but there's too many people
They're not all
that-
passing it on.
there's too many people that are still, I'm getting phone calls from people in Old Bisbee and they're like, what's design review board?
Oh God.
And I'm like, why did you buy a house here?
Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing, is like, and my thing is, if you wanted a big house, why did you buy a little house?
Yes, absolutely.
Because that is a good question.
If you wanted a
right?
new house, why did you buy an old one?
And when you wanted a new house, why did you buy an old, you're right, it's the,
That's true.
why did you buy what you didn't want
Exactly.
in a little historic town that is considered a gem?
Well, that's what my clients, they bought Bisbee, okay? That's what they bought.
Great.
Yeah.
They
Yes.
just found the best deal they could, then they spend the night in it and go, holy crap, this thing sucks.
Yeah.
I got a remodel. And they go, okay, well, go to,
But why they love Bisbee is because it's a historic town character, right? I mean,
yeah.
that's why they love
It's the
it. So,
thinking.
so they can't be part of changing that part of it. And that's not, everything changes, we know that, but we're trying to minimize the impact.
Managing change.
Yeah, managing
Yeah,
change.
I like that.
That's the
Managing
key word, is we
So they're
manage
good.
change. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but,
Oh, no, I like it.
yeah.
We have our conference theme this year is planning the past, preserving the future.
Yeah,
Because that's kind of how we're thinking about preservation, where we're choosing we're planning what to save from the past in order to keep it
You're
for the
flipping it.
future.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
flip
being
the
flipped.
And for properties that will become historic in the future too. That said, please, you're all invited to our historic preservation conference.
when is it?
June 26th through 28th in Prescott at the Hacienda Inn and the Elks Theater.
It's the last week of June, and we have registration scholarships for board members and for city staff.
Oh,
So if you're in, we can't cover your lodging unfortunately,
Yeah.
but if you are interested in attending, there is another training, it's CLG training, and I do it every year. And if you attend the CLG training, then we comp the rest of your registrations.
and when is the CLG?
The CLG training is Tuesday of that week.
Yeah, which I think is the 26th.
Yeah, and it's a half day in
It's
the afternoon.
25th. But Tuesday, yeah, it's Tuesday. I guess I
Oh,
could look
thank
at my
you.
calendar.
Yeah, it's fun. I try to make it fun. And yeah, we're talking all about preservation planning this year, so.
That's great.
Yeah, and we do a lot of stuff like this. We talk about cases,
Okay, well,
get ideas
I'm gonna
from
go
the
to that.
audience, and you get to meet commissioners from all over Arizona.
I'm
which is
interested.
really- which is really fun.
Yeah.
Please come.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You guys can take the city truck.
There you go.
The van up there.
thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank
So
you.
now I need to adjourn the meeting.
Ma'am?
Okay, do we have to do a whole motion and all that stuff? All right,
I make a motion to adjourn.
yeah, okay,
Wait,
Mr. Davis makes a motion to adjourn, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Krupp, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against say nay. The ayes have it. This meeting of the Design Review Board with SHPO is adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do, you guys have cards, yes, for everybody.
Thank you for reminding me, I didn't remind you.
Yeah.
Oh, you're very sorry. I almost reminded, yeah, oh, no, he saw my.
I saw it. You know, I was in Sierra Vista, it was 3 o'clock, and I called Mike